And we're going to have to start over again.
Why?
Dude.
Why? Dude?
I know.
Leave it.
We're so bad at this. Welcome to the DeTalented Podcast.
I love it.
I'm Brian DeTalent, and as always, I am here with my cohort and brother, Jimmy DeTalent. Jimmy, say hi.
Hello.
That's it?
Dude, you know, last week I was not in a great mood. This week I'm in a good mood. Hello. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, I know. You got to give me a little bit more than a hi.
Was that good?
That was good, though.
I said hello.
That is better than last week, because last week you literally said meh.
I said, man.
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
I don't know. That was a little weird. But, man, I'm excited about today. I don't know about you, but dude, we got something special today. Our first time that we've got a live guest with us. So
yeah, baby.
Without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Neal Combs. Neal, say hello. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello. I'm going to keep on going back and forth like this.
That's
you guys
okay.
are,
That's
you guys
all right,
are looking
man.
at each other, and I'm
You've seen
this.
the format, right? I mean, there's no.
So I guess I can look at that.
You can look wherever you want.
You can. You can look at that. Here, I can put this up, and then there's all three of us. You can see all three of us at the same time.
There you go.
It's perfect.
Yeah. So introduce myself, huh?
Introduce yourself.
Neal Combs. I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. Recovered.
There you go.
I like that. I like that pause.
Yeah. A lot of them will say recovering, and I'm no longer recovering. I have recovered.
You know what? Can I say I love that? Because that's one thing that I've noticed before, where people say that, and I know, and you'll get a little deeper into your own personal story, but I know the Lord's involved in your story, and so therefore, I mean, we believe that you're healed. That, like you said, I love that you said recovered, not recovering. That, you know, now you are in the process of not only being recovered, but kind of sharing that with other people.
Absolutely.
That's one thing, man. You know, guys that are joining us, Neal, I'm super impressed by you, man, because, and I know you'll probably hear a lot of first
I'm just
in this conversation. Listen, you know what? There's a lot of men that have just been a drunk, and in fact, I've been there myself in other respects. But the fact that you take your personal time after you went through what you went through, and you've done what you've done, and you live the life you live, and so now you spend so much of your energy and helping other people, man. I think
I have to keep what I have.
Right.
That's why I have to pass it on and share it.
That's awesome.
That's all. How long's it been?
14 years.
14
Almost
years.
Coming up on 14 years.
I'm sure. Do you know
June,
the date?
June
the
2nd.
Date. Okay.
June 2nd, 2011.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure it hasn't been easy.
It was hard the first couple of months, and we'll get into that here in a little bit, but the first couple of months was really hard. I wouldn't have made it without sponsorship in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
Like we were talking just a minute ago, that I sponsor about 14 guys. And without a sponsor in AA or to help you go through what you're going through, I would have never made it.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. No, there's no way.
Did you ever see yourself being a sponsor one day?
No, I thought there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way I can do that.
Yeah.
But then God had a different
plan.
plan.
Here you are.
Here I am.
Let me ask you this. When you first went, were you there because you wanted to be there, or were you there because maybe your hand was forced in some way? And
no, it was not forced at all.
Yeah.
I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the law when I went into a recovery center, and it wasn't the law. It wasn't my wife. It wasn't my kids. It was me. I was just tired of doing what I was doing.
So 14 years and 14 people that you sponsor, is that intentional, or did that just work out?
No, you just now mentioned that. I never even thought about it that way.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat.
So 14 years sober. How long were you not sober?
Since the age of 12.
So 12 years old.
So you're only like, what, 21, 22 right now?
Yeah,
so.
that's where, yeah. So, yeah. No, I'm 60 years old, so you do the math there, 20-something.
I'm terrible at math, so don't ask me.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I started using at the age of 12.
So then you were in your mid-40s, been clean since your mid-40s.
Yeah.
46, we'll say, ish. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then 30 years of A lot of stuff you were
lot of
sick and
stuff.
tired of doing, right?
Yeah, you name it, I did it. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, that process is, from day one, were you one that went in and from day one, you never, or did you ever relapse? Did you ever?
No, I never have. Matter of fact, when I went through rehab, I had a plan, and they told me that this plan would not work. And my plan was to not drink alcohol, not use heavy drugs, but I was going to smoke weed.
Mm-hmm.
That was my plan. And I was so confident with that. I was telling the counselors and asking when I could get a job at the rehab center to change the whole dynamic of recovery.
Wow.
We call this now, and it's funny in AA and stuff, we call that California sober.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah,
I've heard that.
California sober.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And it might work for some people. It won't work for me.
Sure.
Because I do everything to the extreme. If I'd start smoking weed every now and then, I would be right back to everything really quick.
No middle ground. It's all
There's
nothing.
nothing middle ground for me.
So you've got an addictive type personality on steroids.
Yeah. I got 47 Dixons, if that tells you anything.
It does. So
I don't even have one. I I feel so left out. This is not a Dixon. I feel very left out.
Let's preface that. Let's preface that. Neal, you turned me. I'd never seen one before you wore them. I hadn't heard of them. I don't know how, because I know they're famous shirts. And man, now they are, dude. They're the best. They're the best flannel shirts.
Yeah,
that you can buy.
I bought one.
That turned to 47.
You bet.
Yeah.
It's like me with alcohol. They say the first one gets an alcoholic drunk. One beer will get you drunk.
One Dixon to get you hooked.
If I'd put one beer in my system now, it would get me drunk because there's no way I could stop.
You wouldn't stop.
I wouldn't stop. A lot of people go, "Oh, you can stop it." One beer will mess you up. Your tolerance is that low, and it's like, no, my tolerance isn't that low.
They don't understand
the obsession, the craving, and everything that instantly would happen.
One turns into 30
so therefore
real
they don't
real quick.
Yeah, so they don't get the logic of the statement that you're making.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No. Yeah, man, and and it's hard lives like that, man, and it's where some things for some people are so hard, man. But I think that what you went through is something that so many people struggle with. I mean, I see it every single day. And sadly, man, not everybody makes it through.
No.
One of the biggest things is we've got a mutual friend, obviously, and he even started attending church with us. And I'm not going to mention, names, but we know he was doing really well. And then, stress and life happened. And the next thing we know, man, we buried him about a year ago. He was my age.
Yeah.
He was actually a year younger, but, man, that really, really hit home for me.
Oh yeah.
It's
I
just,
still think about him quite often.
I do too, man. I still look in church. I know, obviously one of the things I do is
sit right across the aisle.
I know right where he sat,
time.
and I always look there, and I'm like, man, that's where he sat. That's where he was.
Yeah.
And I know that and here's the thing, man, is I know, because of conversations that I had with him, that our other brother Chad had with him, that man, he was at war. He was fighting, man.
Oh yeah.
He was doing everything he could, man. That, there are, I think people need to understand the depth of the consequences of that disease, for the lack of a better term, because I do believe it's a disease. It's a disease. Yeah, absolutely.
It is a disease.
Yeah. And so, man, people like you, your story is always, it's always like, man, if you could get that imparted into other people who struggle so hard, because a lot of people, if they could just get past that point, right? That just quit.
The surrender.
Yeah.
It's the surrender part.
Yeah.
You have to surrender.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to be an alcoholic or a drug addict. My dad was. And I wanted everything possible not to be my father. I hated my dad with a passion. He was very abusive to my sisters and to my mom. He wasn't me because I was 9 to 10 years younger than my sisters.
So you the baby?
Yeah, baby boy. I was an accident.
Okay.
Yeah, I was an accident.
A surprise.
Yeah, matter of fact, my
too.
mom always tells me, she's kind of got a little bit of dementia going on. And so she repeats the same things a lot. And every time I see her, she'll go, when you were first born, I told your grandfather holding you and crying, what am I going to do with him? And my grandfather said, love him. That's what you're going to do with him.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Because my mom was going through all, it was nightly fights and beatings and screaming and everything else in a little tiny house in Evansville. And I hated my father.
Yeah. From the beginning.
From the beginning. I mean, now I know he did the best he could. But he was drunk every night. He'd come home from work every night at 5 o'clock on the dot.
Yeah.
He owned his own body shop. So he drank at work. He lost a lot of body shops. I mean, they got closed down because you go in for an estimate or something and he was drunk. Right. You're not going to bring your car there.
Sure.
But he would come home and instantly my mom would say, Neal, you need to go back to your bedroom and close the door. And I just hear what was going on. And so many times, me or my sister would have to run across the street and call the police. And back then, they really didn't do a whole lot. The police would show up, but if they didn't actually see a beating or anything like that, they just didn't do anything.
Right.
So how old were you when that was going on? I'm assuming that was before you were 12.
Oh, yeah. That was, at birth.
Yeah.
Ever since,
that's all you can remember.
That's
right?
all I can remember. A little tiny 2-bedroom house.
Where'd you grow up? You grew up in Evansville?
Yeah.
What side of town?
Off Lake Drive.
Oh, okay.
Oak Hill Road,
Lake
Drive.
Right where it's at.
Yeah. Yeah. Down in dead-end neighborhoods down in there.
Yep. I know exactly where you're at.
Yeah. And bullied as a kid real bad because of my dad and because I was a girly boy. Sisters that always protected me. My mom took me everywhere. Cub Scouts, anything school-wise, it was just my mom, never my dad.
Yeah.
And so they teased me and everything. I wasn't very good at school because, at homework, there wasn't no time for homework.
Right.
I would get home or my mom would get home and basically all hell would break loose.
And that was nightly pretty much?
That was every night.
Yeah.
Every night. The only weird part about that, my dad never drank in our house. There was never any alcohol inside of our house.
Really?
So would he drink after work, but just outside?
He was a bar drinker, and he would drink at his shops, or he'd go to the VFW or athletic club. Mm-hmm. I can remember as a small boy that he would take me with him. I mean, he tried to do, be a father.
Yeah.
But he would take me to the athletic club.
The things that he wanted to go do.
Exactly. Yeah. And he'd get me a little coffee filter full of popcorn, tell me to sit over here on the table while he was up at the bar. And then he'd come and bring me more popcorn, stuff like that. But it was kind of bad. I didn't realize, at that age that we'd go to different bars, and a couple of them that I remember it like it was yesterday. It was American Legion on Morgan Avenue and 41. Then it turned into the Thrifty Nickel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the bar was downstairs, and we were going down there, and he tripped and fell all the way down them stairs. And all the rest of the bar laughing at him and stuff like that. I mean, it was just, there was a bunch of different times on that. Little boy like that, not really knowing what was going on, except daddy fell.
Right.
And everybody's laughing at him, having a good time, basically. But he wasn't having a good time. But he was having a good time.
Yeah,
he thought he was. So then, what made you take that first drink or whatever at 12? Was it because that's what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah.
No. The first thing I did was smoke weed, and I was babysitting for my oldest sister. She had two kids. I was 12. Found a Frisbee underneath the couch. And back in the day.
What's this?
That was a rolling tray.
Yeah, it's a rolling tray. Yeah. And I thought, okay, I know about this. And I rolled it and I smoked it. And it was the answer. It was one of those,
everything
moments.
Went away.
Yeah. Finally, because see, alcoholism and drug addiction, drugs and alcohol is the solution to my thinking problem. I have a thinking problem is what's wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And the drugs and the alcohol ease that thinking problem. It made all the things that was going on at my house that I knew was still there go away.
Yeah.
That's when I really started listening to music. was getting high and putting albums on.
Yeah. So you drown out noise.
Yeah.
Is what it sounds like.
Noise.
It's like the noise was so much.
The noise in my head just never stopped.
Yeah.
Talking to me. Everything negative, what was going on.
Yeah, man.
And especially with the bullying and everything else. And my dad not really being there, I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
I was not good enough for anything.
What's wrong with me?
Yeah. Yeah. I was different. Why am I different? And that eased that. A couple of months into that smoking weed and stuff, I come to find out my sister caught me. Well, I opened a cabinet and there was a bunch in a kitchen cabinet.
Jackpot.
Yeah. So I started stealing it. Well, she caught me stealing it. And she was like, you don't have to do that. Well, I'll just pay you to babysit with that. Okay.
Win-win, right?
Yeah. So I started babysitting as much as possible. I was like, hey, can I babysit?
Yeah.
But I was out. My dad would always pass out at the house. And I would go out after dark and take a walk in the neighborhood, smoking the weed.
Right.
I wouldn't smoke in my house or anything like that. So smoking the weed. Well, the neighborhood boys that used to bully me and everything caught me one night. They wanted what I had.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't try to beat me or nothing like that, but they were instantly became nice.
So now a little turn there where you're the cool guy?
Yeah. And hey, can you get me some of this? And I was like, I wanted them to be my friends, even though I hated them too.
Right.
But I wanted
it was that acceptance, right?
Yeah. And so I got them stuff for a while. And then they kept asking me if I'd get them alcohol. And they were same age as me, maybe 1 year, 2 years older than me. Where you get alcohol. And this was the age of 13, 14 years old. And I would say, no, I can't do that. My sister won't do that. And it wasn't that. I didn't want to be my dad.
Sure.
No alcohol.
So that was anything. The line there.
That was nothing to do with alcohol. I never wanted to be him.
Yeah.
They sooner or later taught me into it. And I asked my sister and she's like, sure, no problem. Well, that started a whole different ball game for me. I mean, we'd go out on the weekends like normal, subnormal teenage, like you guys would probably do on the weekends, Friday, Saturday night, out partying, going to parties, stuff like that. Age of 16 years old, I shared a vehicle with my dad. And so he'd come home at 5. I'd get the keys to his vehicle, which had the keys to the body shop, which had the alcohol in the body shop. Yeah. The building's still on Morgan Avenue. It's a used car lot now. It's Morgan and Green River. It's a white building with red and yellow and blue stripes on it, right next to the new Marathon station. I think it is there.
Yeah. Right there by where Risley's used to be.
Risley's, is back behind it, but it's actually on Morgan.
Yeah,
I think it's in between. There's a motel there now, or
there's a Super 8 there. I think just a little east.
Morgan and did you say Green River?
Yeah.
You know where he's talking about there. That Super 8 motel is just a little bit east on Morgan. On the north side of the road.
Yeah, you have Applebee's.
Yeah. It's where the other hotel where they tore down, right? And then they rebuilt, right? Was that the one? It was like a Holiday Inn or something there? Didn't they tear that down?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But we're in the same spot.
Yeah, I mean,
we're around the same
obviously,
area.
we know where Green River
But I would go out there on the weekdays, and that's what I would do is drink his alcohol by myself. I was always by myself from, early age, being in the bedroom, listening to music, cutting the noise out and what was going on in the house. At school, being bullied by myself. The weekdays at the body shop, lights off, listening to music, drinking my dad's alcohol.
So was it a few beers or a lot of beers?
At first, it started a few beers.
Yeah.
And then I found the hard liquor, and which was what kids do. Pour water inside the liquor, so he didn't know. And to this day, well, he's passed away now, but he never found out that I poured.
Never suspected you.
No, or
he was already to that point,
or he didn't say anything. He might have been to that point. It didn't matter to him.
Right.
It wasn't that for me too. It wasn't the taste. We're going for the effect.
Right.
That's what we're going for.
Yeah, man.
And he was, alcoholism runs in our family. My oldest sister, she passed away from alcoholism about 5 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
Worst death I've ever seen in AA or anything.
Really?
It was all the way down to hand sanitizer, and rubbing alcohol is what she was drinking. And that's bad.
Yeah. And and I do have some experience with that, which you know about too.
Yeah.
With a relative of mine that got that bad to where he was drinking hand sanitizer and it just got so bad. I mean, we just slowly watched it take him, until eventually he was gone. And it didn't matter how much we begged him or how much people, spoke to him. He just never came to that decision on his own that he wanted to quit, man. And I don't want to make that sound like a choice because it is a choice, but it's not like some choice that you make where we say, oh, it's just a decision that you make. It is one of the hardest things that any human being can do.
Yeah, because we're mentally and physically addicted to the alcohol.
Yep.
My sister hated me for what I was doing. We were best friends all the way from the babysitting time to once I got older. I was hanging out with her all the time. Yeah. Every night I was at my sister's house. It was funny. They called her Sewa, and she was a pretty big drug dealer in Evansville. Pretty large. And I was Doo-wah because I would do whatever Sewa would do. I would do. Except, I mean, I did every drug that you possibly imagine except put a needle in my arm.
Yeah.
Because she because she was an IV user.
Okay.
And she one time was doing it. The first time I saw her doing it in front of me, she said, don't ever do this because you're going to love it. And I was like, and then she got done and ran to the bathroom and puked. And I thought, okay.
Yeah. Sold. Sold.
I don't want nothing to do with that. Yeah. And the next thing you know, kind of laid out. And I'm like, no, I was a speed junkie. I want to go fast all the time. That's what I liked. That's why I'm drinking Monsters. So I like to go fast.
So let me ask you, how many of those do you go through a day?
Oh, one.
Oh, that's it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Is this your one for the day?
Yeah, that's just because I'm doing this tonight, or I wouldn't have it.
Zero sugar.
I drank 2 pots of coffee today, and I think this is my second energy drink. I've got a problem.
Yeah, I drank a pot of coffee, and
But here's the thing with me, man. I promise you, I could swallow
do that and go to sleep.
2 of those and go to sleep, and not have a problem at all with it. Not be jittery.
It's kind of like my wife to me. That she can drink a cup of coffee, and it puts her to sleep.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, she drinks it at night.
Caffeine caffeine definitely does not.
It doesn't put me to sleep, but I can definitely go to sleep. I can drink a whole pot of coffee and go to sleep. Yeah.
There at the end, before I went to rehab, I was drinking 8 Red Bulls a day, plus a lot of opiates. I mean, a lot of opiates. And then drinking alcohol on top of that. I mean, that's a lot of Red Bulls.
That is.
Especially, I would chug like 3 of them back to back. Just.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And then putting the speedy stuff.
Yeah.
On top of it.
Did your heart just beat out of your chest?
Yeah.
Sometimes, and it would stop.
Yeah.
There at the end, my Demita was actually sleeping with her hand on my chest because
make sure you're still breathing.
I would stop breathing, and she'd have to, hit me, pinch me to get me going again.
Wow.
Isn't it crazy how quickly you spiral down from
it? Yeah. I had a good time. At the age of probably 14 years old, 13, 14, my mom put me through guitar lessons.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. When did you start playing?
About 13, 14 years old. She put me through that, bought me my first guitars. It was a Gibson SG Deluxe.
That was your first guitar?
Yeah, Gibson SG Deluxe.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who'd you take lessons from?
I forget his name, but it was on Weinbach Avenue, and it was a little studio behind his house.
Are you sure it was Weinbach? It wasn't off of Pollock, was it?
No, it was on Weinbach.
Okay.
But still, you don't know where. I mean, maybe that's where did Ron Pritchett live in that house? That
man, he was there for a long time. I started taking lessons when he was off of Pollock.
That name sounds.
He's an old jazz guy. Played at the Eagles a lot.
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah,
he was dude. He was a crazy good guitar player.
Yeah,
I mean, he was like. It was not, and it even still is an old man. It's where I took lessons for a little bit before. And wow.
You say he was old then, but he was probably like our age.
I know.
When we were taking lessons from him. So then you started 14, first Gibson SG was your,
with a
crazy.
Fender Super Reverb.
Going Jerry Garcia style.
Man.
And my mom scrimped and saved every penny to buy me that stuff.
That's nice gear starting out.
And bought it out of the newspaper. You know,
really?
back the classified in the back.
Do you know what that cost back then?
Oh, it was like maybe $150.
I was going to say not much.
Yeah,
a whole lot more now.
Yeah, I wish I still had it.
Yeah,
because it was sweet. Yeah, it was really nice. And then an acoustic guitar, a Martin Sigma.
Dude,
so then you got a Martin for your first guitar or your first acoustic, an SG for his first electric, Martin for your
first acoustic.
Yeah,
there's no where do you go from there?
Yeah, there's really no need to buy anything else.
Yeah,
maybe get a Strat and a Telly.
Did it take hold? Was it an addiction? Did you?
Oh yeah, that's all I thought about. And especially like in school, there was a guy that I hung out with named Maverick Taylor, and
cool name.
And he still plays. I think he's in a country band now and stuff like that. So
he should be with a name like Maverick Taylor.
Maverick Taylor.
Sounds familiar.
The Maverick Taylor Band.
Oh,
yeah, I think that might be it.
That sounds like that's a great country band name.
So you guys started playing together, or?
Yeah, and it's all we did at school was just think about music, writing music, looking at the Hit Parader magazines and Cream magazines and Guitar World, and that's all we did. Which, once again, that was high school, and so I didn't do very good at high school because you throw, drugs on top of that, and alcohol at night. Yeah, it was just because I got in a lot of trouble at school because I wasn't there. I wouldn't participate, especially like sports. No, none at all. I mean, when it came to sports, I was horrible at them. Even started out in grade school, I was the last one picked after the girls. I mean, I'm dead serious because I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
I mean, even my family was never into sports except my grandfather. He did a lot of U of E stuff. And matter of fact, we can go back real quick that he was my hero.
Yeah.
My grandfather and me did a lot.
Is that your mom's dad or dad's dad?
Yeah, it's my mom's dad. And he owned Gold Equipment Company, which was on Columbia Street by Oak Hill Cemetery.
Okay.
He owned that, him and his brothers. And I was there all the time with him, me and my mom. And my grandfather and grandmother went camping a lot every weekend. Matter of fact, they had their camper at not an RV park, but at a campsite, Nolan Reservoir or something like that, all the time.
Like they just kept it there?
They kept it there. We'd go every weekend.
Yeah.
And go fishing with him all the time. And he was my grandpa. He would drink, but he would drink normal.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But he did everything with me. 1977, he was killed in a U of E plane crash.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah. And that destroyed we went to church together, First Christian Church. It was down where the Gathering church is now on Walnut, Walnut and 2nd Street.
Yep.
And he was a deacon there. And he was, always greeting people at the door with little Neal holding his hand. I mean, I even got pictures of that, of me and him standing at the church. Got my hand up holding his.
That's awesome.
So what did he do on the team? He
was just a friend.
Okay.
He was just a friend of the coach.
Yeah,
he was just a friend of the coach. And I remember I was laying on the living room floor. My dad was already passed out in the bedroom, which was cool. My dad, not cool, but they would fight and argue, and then he would go to bed, and he'd already be in bed by 7:30, 8 o'clock, out.
Right.
Completely passed out. And so that's when me and my mom would do stuff. But the phone rang, and my mom stepped into the kitchen and started bawling. And I thought, what's going on here? And then I heard her, screaming out, oh my God, no, that he was killed. And, me going to church, Sunday school, everything, because he'd walk me, we'd greet people every Sunday morning, and then he'd walk me down to Sunday school, or my mom would walk me down to Sunday school. And I loved all that. I loved it. But then, to me, God took my hero away from me.
So it took a turn somewhere.
It instantly took a turn that I didn't want anything to do with God that took my grandfather away from me.
And I think a lot of us do that when it comes to death. It's hard not to, because we know that he has control of everything. But, I kind of equate it to, he kind of watches and he intervenes. But at the same time, all of us have to go through that point, right?
Yeah.
Like death's a part of life. But I know that particular instance or that thing, that phenomenon or whatever it is happens a lot where when a young person loses somebody, and I know this, my son kind of did the same thing with his grandmother. When she passed, it really affected him. It still affects him, and he's much older now, and he was younger. So, do you think was that kind of your cliff? Is that when that happened?
It's funny that everything was around when I was 12.
So you were 12.
So that happened when you were 12.
Well, you figure 77. I was born in 64.
Okay. So 12, 13, somewhere in there.
Yeah, 12, 13 years old. And what was, my grandfather was everything for my mom as a security thing, because we'd go there to his goat equipment, and she'd be crying. What am I going to do? I mean, it was just he was
shelter.
Yeah, I mean, he was everything to her and to me, especially me, where I could get away every weekend and go spend the night there. And he was just.
It sounds like
awesome.
He was peace.
Yeah, he was normalcy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Normal.
Yeah.
For me, I had a normal life. Yeah, I had a normal life when I was at my grandma and grandpa's.
Yeah.
Now, did you continue to go to your grandmother's after he had passed, or no?
No. Matter of fact, she started dating pretty quickly.
Oh, really?
I guess she didn't want to be alone, and that was her way of coping. And so she started dating other guys, and more involved with that than wanting grandson over to spend the night.
Yeah.
Which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It was her way to cope.
She was probably coping. Yeah. Trying to grieve and figure that out. And
she did marry, twice in her life. That was good guys.
Yeah.
Really good guys.
That's another thing that you see a lot. And I see it more with I feel like I see it more with like kind of older guys when they lose their spouses. I'm always like, wow, that was quick. Wow, they really got back on the horse. But man, when you figure, I've been married to Laura for 25 years. I don't know what I would do if she was gone. I don't know how I would. I don't know how I would get by without somebody.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. She takes care of me like no matter.
Same
for everything. And and I know, man. I don't think there's anything that equates. I know losing a parent is awful, but losing your spouse, besides losing a child, I think that's the absolute worst. But I think to lose a spouse, if you're really in love with somebody, like I said, I can't imagine. I depend on Laura so much. I can't imagine losing.
Yeah, I always joke with Demita that I'd date pretty quickly.
Yeah,
just joking because it sounds good. Yeah. It sounds to be free again and no, I've been, with her for 39 years.
Yeah.
And there's no way.
Yeah,
I don't think I'd ever do anything except be at home by myself, which is fine with me.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if I can say it about death, but I've told her before, like she gets mad. She's, every couple gets mad. Hey, we do.
Yeah.
And she'll say, I'm just going to leave. I'm saying, that's fine. Pack your stuff, but I'm coming with you.
Where are we going?
Where are we going?
Yeah.
That's right. But so you're around 12. All of this is kind of you kind of started dabbling.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then you lost your grandpa.
Yeah.
And then when
I don't know which one was before what.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really don't know that.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
What was the point where it started getting to where you knew? Oh man, I'm
doing something. This isn't good anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I was playing in a lot of bands and stuff. Kramer's Lake on Sunday nights. A bar over in Cannleton, Indiana called Bears. I don't even know if it's still there or not. It was kind of cool because we would play and they had a split rail fence in front of the stage. So it was kind of like rawhide, stuff like
chicken
that.
Wire.
Yeah. I was having a great time.
Yeah.
I mean, I was having a great time. Back in the 80s, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. The sex was clean, basically.
Yeah.
Drugs was clean, nothing like you have now.
Right.
I had a great time. I didn't really know there was a problem, but I'd get kicked out of bands all the time because of my drinking. I just couldn't perform anymore. I couldn't play. After a while, it was, beginning it was fun, play good, on a set.
And then
each set,
every set keep going down.
Which was kind of funny, even a couple of times at the end of the night, and instead of us getting paid,
you had a tab.
We had a tab, but we had to pay, and so we didn't get paid.
Yeah.
And I was
that's the classic Blues Brothers.
The really funny part about that was the other musicians with me. They were young. They couldn't drink. They were just in the bar.
So it was your tab.
So it was my tab, because the way I drink, I'm not saying I drank all of that, $500 worth. But if I drank, I wanted you guys to drink just as much as me.
Right.
If I'm doing shots, everybody's doing shots, because I didn't want them looking at me thinking, look how much he's drinking.
Right. Yeah.
I want everybody to be drinking the same amount.
Smart move.
And so sooner or later, I wasn't playing guitar in bands. I was running sound in bands.
I see. Okay.
It was a lot easier for me to be able to do what I was needed to do.
Yeah.
Because you can do that. In the last band I was, they actually thought it was neat that they put a microphone back there at the soundboard, where I could sing, still sing backup and still be involved, because I was doing a lot of, effects and everything else. It was almost like nowadays, like Limp Bizkit and stuff has, a DJ back there. Well, they had a sound man back there that they thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because I had a good time.
Right.
That's one
absolutely.
thing I did. I had a great time.
Yeah.
Playing music, and had a great time doing whatever I was
doing. Right.
Yeah.
Having you say that, I'll ask you, because we've talked about this before. I know you don't play music now.
No.
And
haven't in over 14 years.
And you say it's like trigger. It's like a trigger for you.
No, people say that the word trigger is a rehab thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
The trigger is me. If I look in the mirror, the guy staring back at me, that's my trigger.
Right.
Okay.
It's not really a trigger thing that I don't play anymore. Occasionally I'll pick up the acoustic. I still have guitars.
Okay.
And I'll pick it up, and stuff. Matter of fact, just a couple weeks ago, I did on a Sunday. It was going. I thought, I'm going to play a little bit.
Okay.
Hurt like hell. Because my fingers.
Well, you have. I'm sure a little tender.
Hurt like
tender finger.
Yeah, I should have picked up an electric and started with that, but it was acoustic. But it's not really a trigger. I just, like I said, I get addicted to everything I do, and so if I'd start playing again, it's going to roll out of control again.
Okay,
to where you're going to be in. You're going to be in the classifieds looking for a band to join.
Oh yeah. and buying more guitars, because I had an extensive guitar collection.
Yeah.
I mean, I collected guitars and amps and effects. Even though I didn't need them, I wanted them and just buy them.
No,
I can't fault you for any of that.
I can't either, man.
Yeah.
I can't either. I love guitars. I have a few. Look at Pastor Chad. Look at my brother.
Yeah.
Right. It's the funniest thing ever. Dude, he literally can't play one single chord that I know of. Maybe one, or maybe he might be able to play G chord.
He's got a couple.
But it's going to take him 12 or 13 seconds to get his fingers.
Got G, A, and C down.
Yeah. No.
Maybe.
Hold on.
Maybe G and A.
I wouldn't say he has it down. But dude, he's got this extensive guitar collection. That's amazing. When you see Jimmy playing, I know you're usually at Unplugged. At Loud, if you ever see Jimmy's playing a different guitar every week.
I see that, because sometimes I'll go to Unplugged, but then I'll listen to the Loud service.
Yeah, well, so Chad will bring in some guitar.
Because you change it up on some Sundays.
What do you? Oh yeah,
you don't repeat yourself, word for word.
No, I don't have.
You can't.
I don't have that ability.
You're not a pastor that reads off a thing and goes up and reads it. No,
there's oftentimes I'm like, why do I bother? I spend hours on that outline. And it's the most worthless thing.
And you just,
it's kind of like when I do stuff like this, they call it give your lead in AA. A lot of my sponsees, when they first give their first one, they'll have it all wrote down. And right before they start doing it, I'll say, excuse me. And I'll get up and I'll take it from them. And I'll go, no, that's you. Let God do. Speak through you.
Man.
Yeah. And it's the same thing.
Yeah. Just let freedom. When you're just speaking, you it's not that you don't tell the truth normally, but you tell the truth with truthful emotions.
Yeah.
More of.
Yeah.
And I think what you do, I think by the time people are ready to listen to you and to other people in your position, they're in they're prime. They're ready.
They're at their bottom. They're at their bottom.
And they need to see that raw. I mean, I think that's what's so fantastic about it is that you guys open up like the way I know you open up to people. And for men, that's a hard thing to do. Not to say that it's not for some women too, but I know for men as a macho part, it's hard to admit that, hey man, I had a problem, I had a weakness, I was getting beat. I used to tell people all the time. So when I first started to try, my journey of just not being a scumbag, right? Yeah. Just of just trying to be a better person. It was hard to admit to people that I was in a battle and I was getting beat up. I was losing. And so I think it's so important and I think it's so cool, man, and amazing that people that are in that, I often say it and I don't mean to be mean about it, but this is one thing as a pastor. I'm so glad God let me go live what I lived, even though a lot of it was rough.
Oh, I am too.
Awful.
Yeah, for me.
But now I feel like I have experiences. I'm not going to fib it. I know some pastors, or I've met some pastors that are young and they've literally grew up in a homeschool and they never was out of church and never left the church. They've literally never been to a bar, never seen a bar fight, never been kicked under a pool table, never been done whatever, and or dealt with anything that. Every person deals with things,
right?
But let's be honest: when we're completely away from God, I mean, we deal with hell, and I'm so glad God let me deal with hell, so that now I feel like, man, there's absolutely some substance, and that I don't feel would be there had I not been for the experiences that I had in life.
Absolutely. And
so I think that's what's, when you're talking to people who are going through that, they're not talking to some person who just took some classes to learn how to talk to them. They're talking to somebody that's been crawling in that same ditch that.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I had counseling, I forget the year. Me and Damina was already married and stuff, and I went to a rehab center. I guess I was maybe 28, 29 years old, and they made me go to counseling after I went to rehab in Princeton because we were living in Princeton. And this counselor was blaming my drinking on her. That's the reason why I was drinking was her. And I even asked him, I said, are you, an alcoholic? No, I've studied. Yeah. I have a PhD or this. And I'm like, you don't understand at all. Even though I didn't understand back then what an alcoholic really was. I thought it was my dad.
Yeah.
That's what an alcoholic was.
Right.
And I still didn't think I was my dad. I really didn't. You mentioned hell, that it, went through hell. I mentioned Kramer's Lake. That's where I met my wife at. It was Kramer's Lake on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
Got done playing. It was funny that all the bandmates and stuff were out there partying in the parking lot. She came walking by. I'll say she started flirting with me. I think it was vice versa.
All right.
Damita, I got questions on Sunday.
Yeah. I'll tell her that she's a groupie. She was a groupie, and I was a rock and roll god.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But they couldn't believe that I was actually talking to her because we offered her a drink. No. We offered for her to get high with us.
She said no.
No. She didn't drink. She didn't get high. But I asked her out for a date. I asked her to meet me at the riverfront for the 4th of July fireworks.
All right. Yeah.
Which was a week later or 2 weeks later. I parked in Funky's parking lot.
Yeah.
Funky's. Yeah. That was a partying place.
Boy, was it.
Yeah. I remember going to Funky's a lot, but I never remember leaving.
You don't
Funky's.
remember leaving?
I never remember leaving. But supposed to meet her down there. I parked in Funky's parking lot. They were setting up a band in the stage out back of Funky's. And I said, hey, who's playing tonight? And they said, Edgar Winter. And I thought,
oh, wow.
I thought albino keyboard player
or
a woman. So what do you think I did? I went and seen Edgar Winter.
Yeah.
Right.
So I stood her up.
Oh, man.
Couple weeks. Yeah. Couple weeks later, she didn't have my phone number back then because it was all, we didn't have cell phones or nothing. It was all landlines. Couple weeks later, I was at Funky's on a Saturday night. some girl kept tripping me and pushing me and stuff. She'll say she didn't do this. She really was.
She's going to deny this.
Yeah, she'll go, no, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was her. It was Demita.
You're convinced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I used the old ploy at the end of the night that I was left. You know, my buddies left me down.
Don't
here.
have a ride.
Don't have a ride home. The next morning, she had to take me back to Funky's to pick my truck up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thought your car went here.
You would think, being a person that didn't drink or do drugs, she would know better than to have anything to do with me. That's when, you know, all my friends and everything were going, what are you doing with her? Why'd you even set a date up with her? Because she's nothing that you dated or lived with.
Right.
I dated girls that like to dance on poles.
Yeah.
That's what I dated.
Yeah.
That's who I would live with and everything, because they partied like the way I did. Used to party.
Yeah, man.
That's what I liked. But she was totally different. And so you know, your question earlier, you said, how did you know when I had a problem? And I didn't. You know, it was funny that a couple weeks later, after that Funky's night, she kept on coming back to the apartment. I lived on Jimtown. I had an apartment in Jimtown. I lived with it was my apartment. I'm the only one that had the job. I lived with the lead singer and the drummer in our band, a band called EZ.
Easy, just like E and Z? Or?
EZ, yeah.
Okay.
And so it was my place, but she came up there and she said, I have somebody to introduce you to. And I was like, okay. Well, she brought out a 6-week-old baby, and it was hers. 6-week-old. And that's who she introduced me to. That's my daughter. That's my oldest daughter.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
It was a pregnancy out of it was a one-night stand thing. The father didn't want nothing to do with Demita. Did not say, even flat out said, that is not my child. It's not mine. Demita knows it's his, but
right.
It has never had anything to do with with her or you know, or the child or anything. But it was funny that she had a heart monitor on. She had sleep apnea, which back then it was called crib death.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Somebody would die.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crib death.
Yes.
They'd stop breathing in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Crib death.
Yeah.
So she had a heart monitor on, but I made a little pallet beside the bed that night, and she's been my child ever since.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man.
And that was how long ago?
39 years ago.
39 years ago.
39 years ago.
So you guys got together that infamous night at Funky's, and then you've been together ever since.
Yeah, and it's, you know, everybody was like, what are you doing with her? Don't drink, don't do drugs, and has a brand new baby that's not yours. What are you thinking, dude? And I wasn't thinking, you know, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous has, you know, that we study as a textbook, has something called a geographical change in there that we actually try. I didn't know nothing about AA. My dad went to AA one time, said it didn't work because everybody went out and got drunk after the meetings.
Right after the meeting.
He went out and got drunk after the meetings.
Yeah, right.
That's what he did. But it talks about that geographical change. I didn't know nothing about that book, nothing about geographical change, but I knew I had a problem with drugs really bad because I could get whatever I wanted from my sister. She was still my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever I wanted, I could get for free because she was that big of a dealer. Wow. And would give little brother whatever.
Yeah.
So I knew I had a problem. So Demita invited me to Princeton, which she had a 2-bedroom apartment, government apartment. They paid her $13 a month to live there. Food stamps, WIC, which, you know, you got cheese.
Oh, yeah. Cereal, milk.
All that
eggs,
stuff.
milk, that kind of thing.
All that stuff that baby needs.
Yeah. And a full-grown drunk.
Yeah.
That was going to be right.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Listen, we've never been really rich. We've never been, you have to be, we always had WIC with every one of our kids. And I've had a lot of boxes
government
of
cheese
Kaboom.
Was the bomb.
Oh, listen, when we were younger and my dad was a pastor, you know, he'd work at churches and get paid maybe $200 a week or something, just crazy. We'd get that government cheese, boy.
The big blocks right there.
Yeah.
It was grilled cheese.
They made awesome grilled cheese.
You had to cut yourself.
Yeah. That was like the first you know what they did? They repackaged that and called it Velveeta.
and charge a lot of money.
Yeah, dude. That's good. And you know, man, I want to say this because maybe there was a point. I really don't like to say, when did you discover you had a problem? Because we all have problems. And I'm the one that even said it. But I guess more than that, and it probably wasn't at the same time anyway, was when did you realize, okay, I got a problem? When was the moment that came that said, I want to change?
That was, about 15 years ago. I drugged Demita and 3 kids because we had 3 other kids. Not 3 other kids, but I had 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. And I drugged them through my own, you said hell earlier. Yeah. I drugged them all through my own personal hell for so many years.
Yeah.
I turned into my father. Abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse. I did everything my dad did to my family.
And you swore at one point you'd never be that.
I would never do that.
Yeah.
So you literally turned into what you despised.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although down to the T.
Yeah.
I mean, everything except I didn't hit Demita. I never hit Demita.
Right.
The kids, harsh punishments. I mean, I didn't, no blows or to the face or anything, but it was harsh spankings.
Would I be out of order to say that maybe you were a little scared to hit Demita? She'd have jacked you up. No, I'm just
Demita?
I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah. I called her name one time back then, and she fisted me quite a bit.
Oh, you know what? Hey, dude, I'll tell you what.
You don't call Demita that B word.
Yeah.
No.
Ooh, let me tell you, one time I pushed Laura far enough, and Laura's a very non-confrontational, very peace, doesn't want any confrontation. She hates confrontation. And like I said, we've been married for 25 years. We were probably married 3 years or something. And we got in an argument and I just kept pushing her. And finally, dude, the proudest I've ever been of her, dude, she hauled off and punched me in my neck.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. Threw a pretty like straight right cross and just hit me in my neck. And like her eyes got big at first, and I was like, "Oh, that a girl." When the argument was over, I was like,
"That's funny."
I was like, "I'm so proud of you right now." She jacked me up too.
Well, I'll tell you this. Now, Sarah's never hit me out of what I would call anger. Well, I don't know. Maybe she has.
Sarah's hit me out of anger.
Don't let Sarah get some boxing gloves on, and you don't want to be around her. Man, she will.
She's good at it, huh?
Yeah, she punches like a man. She fights like a man. Sarah does.
And she has no hesitation. She'll hit you in the jaw.
Yeah. We get punched in the face all the time. Like this is no
she gets rowdy.
Exaggeration. She'll walk by me, Neal, and jack me. Just bow. I mean, just like, wow.
I want to see that sometime.
Oh, no, Neal, don't say that.
Yeah, don't say that. She will.
She's going to see this. And she will literally come. I guarantee you she'll come in, Neal, watch this. Bow. Shot me, dude.
She gets rowdy.
Oh, man. But she is literally like, if Sarah hits you, you've been hit. Like she's like
got a punch on.
She's not big as a minute. But she gets tortured.
Oh yeah,
we've probably earned that.
Yeah. She's a saint. She's
Laura's just different. Laura just laughs and giggles and stuff. She's not, but Sarah's violent.
Sarah get worked up. Sarah get fired up.
We'll have a barbecue or something. We'll just be cooking out, eating, and by the end of the night, for some reason, Sarah comes blasting out of the garage and she's got this pink, these pink boxing
ready
gloves
to go.
on.
Ready to go.
Everybody knows we're getting
here we go.
Jimmy and Brian are getting punched in the face.
So Demita's from Princeton, born and raised there, or
Frisco, Indiana.
Frisco.
Yeah,
that's pretty close.
Just like 5 minutes down the road from Princeton.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I moved up there. She cooked me stuffed pork chops, and I stayed. I haven't left.
That was it, right?
That was it. It was stuffed pork chops.
Nothing wrong with that.
Hey, here,
stuffed pork chops. Yeah. So she took care of me.
Yeah.
I mean, she had 4 kids.
Okay.
Because of me.
Okay.
Yeah, I was her fourth kid.
I understand.
And we did all right for a while. We moved out of that government apartment into a 2-bedroom house, rented it for a while. That's when the time I went to rehab, I got in trouble with the law. I was going to do 90 days in jail or a 28-day program. Do the math there.
Yeah. I mean, what am I choosing here?
28 days, yeah. So I went to Hopkinsville, Kentucky, Western State Hospital, called Volta House, for 28 days. They told me I could never drink again. They said, you're an alcoholic, you can never drink again. And that crushed me. Somebody tell me I can't drink ever again.
Yeah, because that was
what I did.
Yeah.
I had a good time.
Right.
That's what I did. I didn't think it was a problem. I thought it was just I got in trouble for drinking. So I got out of rehab. That's when I went to the counselor and stuff like that. But I thought I stayed sober for quite a while after that. Demita's story, when she does her story as well in Al-Anon, she'll say it lasted a couple weeks. But I started dabbling with weed first, and then next thing I know, I was drinking again. And I was drinking in front of Demita, but then it went from drinking beer to stashing liquor bottles underneath the shrubs and stuff outside.
Yeah.
I had a big garden. I was stashing vodka bottles in the garden underneath tomato plants. So I'd be working in the garden, hitting that hot vodka. And yeah.
Nothing about that sounds good.
No, and I didn't realize it was, I thought that was just normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't know anything different.
Like you said, you grew up under that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And so I didn't know there was anything wrong with that. She did. But she never, not one time, would get mad and say, Neal, you have a drinking problem or you have a drug problem. She never one time, even though I was, doing that to the kids, which I hate that part of my story. If I could change anything in my life, it would be the physical and verbal and mental abuse to my kids and my wife. That's it. Because it was bad.
So how are your relationships now?
Oh, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. And it took a while. We'll get to that here in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Because it's a beautiful part of my story.
Yeah.
It really is. But I started drinking again and everything. I collected snakes. Once again, go overboard at everything I did. I had 47 snakes in our bedroom.
Oh, those are nope ropes.
And some of them were venomous. Some of them were venomous snakes.
Ooh, Neal.
Yeah. Alcohol and venomous snakes do not mix.
I wouldn't think so.
No. So
Did you take some bites?
I took one.
From what kind?
White-lipped tree viper.
I don't know what that is, but that sounds pretty deadly.
Yeah, and snakes can give you a dry bite. They know to control their venom and stuff. And so it was kind of a dry bite. I still kind of lost my sight for a couple.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I couldn't talk. I couldn't talk very good.
That
doesn't
dry.
sound like a dry bite, man.
Well, Demita wanted to take me to the ER, but back then it was you couldn't have venomous snakes in the state of Indiana. They had not a law that says you couldn't have them, but you couldn't transport them over state lines. And so you get in trouble by the federal government by bringing them
across.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now you can get permits and stuff.
No, I know there's strict laws. Have you seen what's going on in Florida? That's a little quick detour.
Are you talking about like what?
For years they've been fighting like these pythons and
the
hurricanes
Everglades
and stuff. Yeah.
So now though, there's saltwater Nile crocs. They're finding Nile crocs. I guess that people, I don't know if they released from like a zoo or whatever. And also, I'm pretty sure it was king cobras.
So are either of those native to Florida?
No,
they're not. So they've gotten released, and then now
they get released because people don't know how to handle them and stuff, or the hurricanes come. And there was a. I'm not going to mention the business that was down there that a hurricane hit, and all their animals got released.
Yeah, and that was
on purpose.
And they think that one there ended up being like probably caused like a population boom.
Oh yeah,
because
like, snakes breed. They can breed twice a year. Yeah, a snake can.
I think if it's the one I'm thinking of, I think there was like several breeding pairs and different animals. And stuff.
So then in that breeding process, how many snakes can they breed at one time?
As in hatch.
Yeah, hatch, whatever. I don't know the lingo.
Some of them lay eggs. Some of them, actually give live birth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I don't know these things.
Yeah.
I stay away from snakes.
You're talking 10 to 25 at a time. Yeah.
And then it just
twice a year.
Yeah.
And it's been going on for, that happened
quite a few years because I even thought about when I was still drinking and stuff, moving to Florida, and because they wanted hunters, to actually go out and hunt them. And I'm not scared of snakes at all. I used to go, out snake hunting in this area, and I'd see a snake out in a creek. I'm going down for that snake, even though you don't know what it is.
Bad idea city.
The other way.
Yeah. Bad idea city.
Yeah.
No, but they're still doing that. They still have them snake. As a matter of fact, tons of dudes are making a lot of money with YouTube channels that's what they do, go snake wrangling.
Oh yeah.
Down there. And you know who's even doing it now that I love to watch do it is Troy Landry. So when he's not, you know who Troy Landry is? No. From Swamp People, the King of the Swamps. Shoot 'em, Elizabeth, shoot 'em.
Yeah.
That one.
He's doing it.
He does it. So when he's not doing I guess when they're off season at the Swamp People, there's a show now where he's down in Florida wrangling up those pythons and stuff.
Neal?
Yeah.
It could be your future.
Neal.
No.
The snake wrangler. No. Just go down there one day a week.
I don't even have any snakes anymore.
No. You know what? And so I remember you having snakes. Was that recent? When did you get rid of the snakes?
The last one was probably about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, because you would have been here by then.
Yeah, I downsized. And at one time I tried to change professions, and I actually started working for a reptile breeding facility in McCutcheonville.
Okay.
And I was taking care of 1,700 snakes 6 days a week by myself in an 82-degree enclosure with no windows, no nothing, just breeding and feeding snakes.
There's a worst case scenario for me. That's
it.
They
right
wasn't
there.
venomous or anything.
Okay.
So
but
it was all right.
It was okay.
But some of them were, reticulated pythons, which are, the size was the size of a basketball.
And
about
I always
17 foot long.
If one of those curl up to you at the end at night in your bed, they're not trying to cuddle. They're trying to size you up to see if they can swallow you.
See if they can eat you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what, we were talking on that one episode about dual survival. You ever watched that show or seen that show?
Oh yeah.
So one of the most times ever I agreed with Joe Tedai was that Matt guy was on there. Matt was kind of a hippie.
The hippie guy. Yeah, I know.
I love Matt. Yeah. Like I think he's probably the best person to be on that show. Like that dude was the real deal. But then that rainbow boa went by and he didn't kill it and eat it. And then later he was like, they were laying there talking about food and he was like, "Oh, Joe, well, I seen a snake, but it was just so beautiful I couldn't kill it." And Joe Tedai was like, "Say what?"
Yeah.
He was like, "You made a decision for me. You're sacrificing the me." He just gets so wild, dude. Oh man. But so we'll get back. I told you this just kind of goes off the rails.
It does, and that's fine.
You got to wrangle us in.
Yeah. I know. You be the snake wrangler. You be the talent boy wranglers. But you found out, you knew you had a problem, and then now you're to the point where you're like, okay, I got to change.
Well,
was there something like, I'm about to lose my family? I'm about to lose
I had a lot of knee surgeries and stuff. And so I'd always get addicted to opiates.
Okay.
All the time I'd get addicted to opiates. And back then, say 20 years ago, it was easy to get opiates from your doctor. They'd write you out a prescription.
Oh yeah. You
hey doc, I washed him in the washer.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Like Lortabs, Vicodin, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, or you just drag. I had a family doctor in Princeton, and I used him all the time. I'd drag my leg in. I hurt my leg today. There's that script wrote, no problem. Plus, I still was hanging out with my sister. I wasn't living in Evansville. She lived in Evansville, but I could get whatever I needed from her. So I was going back and forth, and I would try to I know I have a problem with those, and so I'd detox off of them, drinking more alcohol.
Yeah. Ooh.
And then, I would do okay without the opiates and just drink. I never drank at work because that was something my dad would do. Speaking of my dad, I never, all the way up to the day he passed away from alcoholism, drank with my dad.
Never.
He would ask me, "Neal, you want a beer?" Because he was there once he retired. He had a garage, detached garage at his house, and he would drink back in the garage. But I'd go back there to visit him. "Hey, you want a beer, Neal?" No. But as soon as I would leave there, I'd instantly go to the liquor store.
Yeah.
Instantly. But I just wouldn't drink with him.
Just something you didn't want to. Yeah.
I just did not want to do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I still didn't realize I was like him. Didn't realize it at all. I didn't realize what I was doing to my family at all. But so many times I did the detoxing off the opiates and everything. And then 16 years ago, I was hit on by a drunken driver on the way to work, 7 o'clock in the morning, leaving Princeton. I was working in Evansville, same place I work at now, just a different location. head on. I was behind a school bus. School bus started veering off, and I thought, what's going on here? About that time, a blazer clipped her side, the bus's side, and hit head on me. It crushed my jaw. I put it in the back of my throat, fractured both my legs, had my mouth wired shut for 14 weeks.
Oh my! This is new. I never.
Man, there's that number 14 again.
Never thought about that.
It is. That's wow.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is a direct multiple of 7. The number of completion,
which is my favorite number.
There you go.
Yeah, crazy.
We're going deep in math now.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's about all I got.
unless something else comes up on the 14th.
Yeah.
Well, they gave me the highest strength of opiates you can imagine in liquid form, and so I could say, I could call the pharmacy and say I spilled it, and they deliver more of it. So I had that going on for me. I was off of work, drinking opiates, drinking heavy liquor all the time. In front of the meat and stuff, I was drinking beer, but I had liquor stashed all over the house still, or out the garage, everywhere. I loved it whenever it was bath time or shower time for Demita. When I was, I'd be drinking beer in front of it, I'd hear that bathtub turn on.
So you had some time.
I had 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes to drink like I wanted to drink.
Yeah. And I guess just that and all at that point you probably didn't realize it, but just the fact that you were hiding.
I didn't realize it at all. No, I thought it was normal. I just didn't want her to catch me. That was it. Didn't want her to see how much I was drinking.
Sure. Yeah.
Because she didn't want me to drink the hard liquor. She,
just wanted to avoid that.
Yeah, she would never get mad at me or anything, but I just wanted to avoid the conflict of it or her sadness or anything else. Kids were moving out on me. Or on us, oldest daughter, age of 18 years old. She was gone, married her high school sweetheart because she wanted away. She wanted away from me.
Yeah.
Did you know that at the time?
No, not at all, really. I just thought she was ready to go.
Right.
Or I just didn't care. Didn't care.
Yeah.
Never let my kids play sports, anything in school, because it would affect me. So so her leaving, getting married, did affect me. It made me more that I didn't have to worry about.
Right, it was another level of freedom.
One kid gone. Sure. All right, got 2 more to go. The middle child, Brittany, she moved out probably at the age of 19, 20 years old. She's a huge part of my story, and I love her to death. She's an Alcoholics Anonymous. We'll get to that here in a minute. But things were going down. I could not stop the opiates at all or the drinking. I would try so hard once I went back to work to get off of them, and I would detox. I'd call them my boss and say, "Hey," he knew I had a problem.
Right.
I knew I had a problem with the opiates, not the alcohol.
Right.
Not the alcohol at all. I was a functioning alcoholic, I thought. Which come to find out there's no such thing as a functioning alcoholic. But I thought I was, just like my dad. I'm my dad. I'm good with it.
Was this 7 days a week?
Drinking?
Yeah.
Oh, for the last 15 years of me drinking, I never went without one day. I would start shaking.
Okay.
Or, I just couldn't. I just could not. It was, I mentioned it to me as an Al-Anon. And Al-Anon is for family members of Alcoholics Anonymous, or of alcoholics, because we make them sicker than we are.
Right.
I had a solution to my sickness. It was to drink. She had no solution, at all, except to take care of me. That was hers, to take care of Neal. It went as far as her sickness. She was working at Toyota doing graphics, and she actually took a hammer and busted her fingers, broke her fingers, just to get me pain pills, and walked in that night and said, "Here," because I was detoxing and shaking. And if you detox off of opiates that you've been on for a long time, you get like the flu times 10.
Yeah.
Shaking, sweating, crying that I needed them, because my brain will actually stop, or our bodies actually stop making our natural painkillers. We have natural painkillers, but if you put enough opiates and on opiates long enough, your body stops making.
Yeah, your body doesn't need it.
No, so it stops producing that. Yep. So I was actually in physical pain, even though I wasn't. I thought I was. My jaw hurt all the time. My jaw hurt. I would say that. I would feel that.
You had to have the hurt to get the medicine.
Yeah, or I'd lie about it. You know, either my brain was lying to me about it. You know, alcoholism and drug addiction is the only terminal illness that will talk to you.
Yeah, I think I've heard that from other people.
Cancer won't talk to you. Diabetes won't talk to you. Alcoholism and drug addiction will talk to you.
Absolutely.
And say you need that to make you better.
At that point when she did that, so she could get her hands on the medicine and she brought them to you, where your sources were dried up or your sister was gone?
No, it just means more.
Oh, just so
more.
You had some, just more.
It's just more.
Oh, okay.
That and, the money thing started to come into play. We lost Demita's car. I bought her a new car. I was doing pretty good at, pretty good money.
Yeah.
Demita at that time was working at a hospital after the Toyota thing and after the hand thing. But I didn't make a car payment. She called me on the phone. Why is my vehicle being loaded up on a flatbed? Crying. And I was like, because I didn't make the payments. And I hung the phone up and kept doing what I normally do. I didn't care.
Oh, man.
Did not care. I just cared about one thing, and that was drugs, opiates, and other drugs as well that she didn't know about. She knew about the opiates. She didn't know how much. But I tried to detox off of them, doing good for a week. As soon as I'd get in my truck to go to work on a Monday morning, on the phone call my sister. Every single time. Selling guitars. I had 3 Dean U.S. hardtails, which is about $3,000 a piece. Yeah. Marshall amps. Started selling them to a buddy of mine. I wasn't pawning. If I'd pawn stuff, that would make me out to be a drug addict,
right?
A junkie.
So you're just getting rid of it.
I'm getting rid of it. Thinking,
you were just selling stuff you didn't need.
Give me $300 for this, this Dean guitar. I will get it back from you next week. I just need to borrow $300. Okay, right. Yeah. I never did get them back. So I knew something was happening. The paychecks, I stopped giving Demita my paychecks. They were taking our house away from us. I didn't care. I just, all I cared about was opiates. That was it. Nothing really happened to me. Never said anything about what was going on. She'd cry at night. She never did tell me I was stopping breathing. She never told me that stuff. But I was detoxing one day at the house. She came home from work and I instantly started crying. And I said, I need help. There wasn't, I'd say now it's my first spiritual awakening that I had. In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, we talk about a spiritual awakening.
Right.
And that was, to me, was my first spiritual awakening. Was something told me, I know now it was God saying, you need help, dude. Yeah. Ask for help because you're going to die. Because I didn't care if I died. I did not care that I died. I was putting 30 Loratab 10s a day in my body.
Oh. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Plus other drugs, plus drinking on top of that. Plus the 8 Red Bulls we talked about earlier, chugging those down. So I was actually peeing Red Bull out, and it was horrible. And with all that opiates too, it was bad. So I didn't care if I lived or died. I did not care. Some nights I'd go to bed going, please don't wake up.
Yeah.
I don't want to wake up. I don't want to do this again tomorrow. But I get up and do the same thing.
So life had become, so at this point, life had become misery.
Yeah, they say, insanity.
Yeah.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Yep.
My word for insanity, or my version of it, is doing the same thing over and over again, knowing exactly what's going to happen.
Because you knew.
But I still did it.
So, and here's the other thing I'll add from, and I don't know if it was you too, but I think it sounds like it was, is doing something that you don't want to do, but you can't help but do it.
Yeah.
Right.
I couldn't help it.
Even the Apostle Paul said
that popped in my mind as soon as you said that.
He said, here I am. He said, I
the
pray
things
to you,
I want to
the
do,
things I want to do, I
can't do. I don't want to do, I do.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then. You said in the beginning it was all fun. You were having a blast for a long time. When did it stop being fun?
When the opiates came into play.
Yeah.
You know, other drugs and stuff like that when I was collecting snakes. Because I had snakes. We bought a big house in Princeton, big 4-bedroom house, dream home. I mean, it was beautiful. Big wraparound front porch. I'd sit out there. You know, this was probably 16 years ago. Sit on the front porch, joint in my hand, drinking a beer, waving at the neighbors as they walk down to the park, living the American dream.
Life's good.
Life is good. For me, it was.
For you.
The kids, no. For Demita, no. But I didn't know that. I was totally oblivious to it because I was so messed up.
Yeah. Well, because you kind of lost yourself probably at that point.
Oh yeah. I mean,
to where you were what you were on.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way
I became what I was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I did. Yeah.
What was your, let me ask you this. I know you've said it, and obviously you can only go into as much detail as you want, but what was your attitude and your, like you said, you abused them. Like, what was was it more like verbal abuse and just like ignoring them?
No, yelling, just my dad, just identical like my dad.
Yeah. Yelling,
screaming, degrading them, harsh spankings with objects. I mean, and half of it I don't remember at all, or over half of it because I was in blackouts. Yeah, total blackouts. Yeah. Demita would tell me about them. You know, not the next day or anything like that, but in her story. And plus, I hear my daughter give her story in AA, and I will go to support her because I love her, but I hate.
You hate hearing that
because she flat out say I was a monster. But if they were identical, they would see me pull in the driveway and instantly go to their room scared to death because they didn't know what dad was going to be like.
And that's what you did when you were young?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. She will actually say that the only time that she'll say, hey, we had fun. We'd go camping and dad was a totally different person camping or out with people. But when I was at home, I was a monster. And I don't know why at all, but I was just downright evil.
Were there ever times where you would wake up the next morning and think, man, what did I do?
No.
Never?
Back then I had something called, not something called, but it was uncontrollable anger. I would be we'd be sitting at the supper table eating. We'd eat every night as a family. And if one of my kids would say something that happened at school or wouldn't eat something, I would blow up. And it was just uncontrollable rage.
So not a normal reaction.
No, it's just whatever. Uncontrollable rage.
Yeah.
Where I just, take my plate and just throw my plate of food and just go off.
Yeah.
And it wasn't nothing they did.
Right.
At all. They were just kids.
It was just your reaction.
It was my way of thinking. It was just totally wrong.
Yeah.
Totally wrong.
It's so hard to get to that realization. And man, I think every parent, obviously not to that degree, but we all have done things. I know I've done things where now I will, if something happened like that the next day, be like, you're a jerk or whatever, which you said you didn't have. But, I know that, that alcohol that's the thing about alcohol. And I know the drugs, the opiates do it too, but alcohol just, blows everything up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Drunks are either really funny
or really mean. And
yeah.
I would go from funny to mean instantly.
Yeah.
And it was just towards them though. I could go to a bar partying.
No issues.
No fights. I was never in a fight. Ever in my life was I in a fight. I mean, I had a good time. But when behind closed doors in my house, I was a totally different person. And I didn't realize I was at all. At all.
So when did that come? When did you realize I'm not me? Because that had to be at some point, that was the realization I would think that turned everything around.
When I went to rehab, I asked Demita for help. And she instantly, when I said, I need help, she instantly started crying and she left. She walked out the door. And I thought,
Oh man!
For years,
she's been waiting to hear that.
And I asked for help, and she leaves.
She went to go get it.
She went to the doctor,
my
family doctor, and she, instantly walked in, knew us pretty well, family, small town doctor, and said, Neal's asking for help. And he said, it's about damn time.
Yeah, man.
He knew I had a problem. Everybody knew I had a problem except me.
Yeah,
I didn't know I had a problem. I really didn't. I just thought I liked doing pills a lot.
Well, because I think that's the rub with it, is that it escalates from recreation to,
or from pain, actual pain, to dependency.
Yeah, exactly.
Demita's been addicted to pain medication. She's not an addict.
No,
but she's been physically and mentally addicted to pain medication.
Yeah, it's rough. If you, it don't take long.
No,
that is very, very. I've known several people that's been their demise, and it literally started out as a true injury. Like they needed it. They had a toothache,
and then it just sneaks up, and you don't see.
And the next thing you know, they're hooked on these. It's it's either using like Lortab or Vicodin, or what's the other one? Norco or
they went to they don't do Lortabs anymore. Now they're narcos.
No,
they changed.
But the amount that you took, like you just said, you took 30. So that's all. And I can't say the word, dude. What's the word for aspirin?
Acetaminophen?
Yes, that's one. Acetaminophen.
Yeah. And believe it or not, my kidneys and liver are fine.
I can't believe you lived through that much.
Wow.
No, I can't either.
Wow. That dose, 30 of those, that could be a lethal dose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And absolutely. You were doing that daily.
Yeah.
And,
they're at the end.
Functioning, doing a job.
At work. Functioning the best I could.
Uh-huh.
I was, I'd always go to work all the time. Never drank at the job, but I do the Lortabs.
You drink before the job?
No.
So you
that was my dad.
Your drinking started at 5 o'clock or whatever.
4 o'clock. The liquor store was right around the corner, and I could not wait to get
there. That was the routine.
Yeah,
that was the routine. It's bad, which I didn't realize when you walk in a liquor store and the attendant has your stuff
already ready.
Right when you walk in the door,
there's
it's
Neal
sitting there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, man. Because you were a true regular, it sounds like,
In rehab, my counselor, which is a good friend of mine now, would call me a piece of shit. Yeah. He'd walk in and say, "Good morning, you piece of shit," because that's how I felt. I knew what I did to my kids. I knew what I did to my wife, and that's how I felt. I felt that bad. And so that's what I did.
And so your counselor would call you that?
Yeah. He was a rough ass one.
Yeah.
I mean, he was rough. I mean, it was tough love.
I was going to say that was probably some tough love.
Tough love. Yeah. I mean, he knew what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. But that's when I had that plan of mine that I was going to not do drugs, not drink, detoxing off of opiates and alcohol. That, like I said, I drank for 15 years straight every single night to a blackout. Detoxing off of them was horrible. And it was a medically detox. They would medically detox you.
So what were you detoxing off the pills or off the
both
booze?
At the same time?
They did them both at the same time for you.
Yes.
So that's physically but you were under the care of a physician, right?
Yes.
Because I know a lot of the people that end up not making it, they actually some of them are fighting so hard. Matter of fact, the one we were talking about earlier, what got him was detoxing, right? That's what I had heard.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I think he overdosed on alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I have another friend. We talked about him the other day. So you know who I'm talking about, Jimmy. Again, I don't want to say their name on here just because, but I'll say it afterwards. But I know he literally died. His heart stopped from detoxing off of alcohol. He was in another friend's bathroom, and the other buddy that we know said he just heard a loud thump in there and he was gone. He was dead.
Wow.
And I looked up you can look up their genealogy and death certificates, and his cause of death was detoxification from alcohol, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
There's a syndrome.
You can go into seizures and stuff.
And from what I understand, they said his heart just gave out. It just stopped. But literally, his heart stopped. He hit the ground. And he was gone.
Yeah. They don't ever say that you overdose off of drugs or alcohol. They always say they always say, what are we doing?
You're out of frame.
I'm not good at
there you go.
How long have I been
just
that
a
way?
Little bit.
Okay.
Listen, hold on though. I just want to point out that I was really good at it that time. I switched over to where they could only see you, and then I was trying to give him hand signals, and he was like,
and then I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I know. But it's okay.
We told you coming in.
That's par for the course here.
So that was cold turkey for you.
Yeah, medically. Yeah. I mean, I go in there. It was a lockdown facility in Newburgh. Thank God they let me smoke, because I still smoke cigarettes now. And it was a smoking facility. You know, you had smoking breaks outside.
I'll tell you right now, I think, I'll just say on this, if there's facilities and people are trying to go through that, there's no way they should try to make them quit smoking.
No, then there is places like that go, no smoking here. No. You're like, really, dude?
Let me tell you, I know here, okay, little bit of nowhere near the level of you at all. But after I was done with everything, dude, the last thing that I quit was smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
Neal, that was the hardest thing
That's why I
ever done in my life.
That's why I haven't.
I mean,
it scares me.
It's hard.
Yeah, because I've been smoking since I was like 11.
People don't know the panic.
Yeah, I bet not. And I've never tried to not smoke. A lot of people go, oh, I've tried so many times. I have never tried.
Just think about the panic though. Like when you look and you're like, oh no, I thought I was going to get through, and now this pack's empty, and I'm 20 minutes from a gas station or whatever. I remember just being like,
well, it's been like an hour and a half now that we've been up here.
How are you getting itchy, or are you getting?
No, I got this rock that I'm sitting there, and it started out as a round ball.
How long have you had that?
This?
Yeah.
I always use it when I speak.
Is that right?
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it have significance outside of that?
Demita picked it out at a rock show.
I saw you over there fumbling with it. I didn't want to say anything. No, I figured it was something like that.
We picked it out. It called to her. It was in a big vat of other rocks, and she's like,
"That's the one."
She handed it to me, and I was like, "Huh." And so I don't keep it with me all the time, just when I speak.
Yeah.
Which I do a lot. Tell my story in Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous and different Christian things.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I know you're busy.
I've probably, not this form, but spoke over 100 times on drug addiction and alcoholism.
Yeah. So yeah, we are, we're an hour and 26 minutes in, which to me, it feels like we're 5 minutes.
It feels like we just started, but I really want to hear.
I want to hear the redemption.
That's what I want to hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got out of rehab. Well, when I was still in there, they told Demita to leave me. Divorce him while he's here.
Who's they?
The counselors. We'd have group settings, family settings, and right in front of me, he'd say, "You need to divorce him before he leaves here. File the paperwork and run."
Was this the guy who called you the excrement?
Yep.
See how I see?
Yeah, I like how you churched that up, Jimmy.
I did church that.
I like that. Yeah, I like it.
So
that's a big word.
guy.
I'm about to look that word up.
Excrement.
Yeah.
So then this is the same guy.
Fecal matter, right?
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
He was in
same guy.
Were you in the fecal position?
Yeah. Get rid of everything with his name on it, because he is going to die. He is going to die. He will not make it. He will die. Even the outpatient counselors told Demita and told me flat out, "You're going to die. You're not going to make it." I refused Alcoholics Anonymous. They bring meetings in not every single night, but Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays and Saturdays. They still do at that facility. Plus Narcotics Anonymous on other nights. I'd go to them. I'd talk a lot. I never picked up, they called a white chip, a surrender chip, because I knew I was still going to smoke weed. That was
your plan, right?
That was my plan. And that's why they said you're going to die, because it's not going to work. But I'd go into the meetings. I'd talk. I didn't want anything they had to offer. Mainly, they mentioned one word: God.
And
did not want nothing to do with God.
That was kind of your.
That was the farthest thing away that I wanted. I mean, I tried. I was a pagan, practiced witchcraft. You name it. I wanted anything other than
God.
Other than God. And they were happy. They were hugging each other, laughing at each other. And I was like, "There's no way they're sober. There is no way they're happy being sober." And so I didn't pick up white chip. Got out of rehab, lasted about 3 days out without smoking weed. Well, no, I was smoking weed, not drinking, not working the program, not talking to anybody, in my own head, and I tried to commit suicide. I was done. For so long, I didn't care if I lived or died. I wanted to die. My solution was gone. All I had was my thoughts in my head, and I could not stop it talking to me. Could not. And I thought, this is it. I'll die. Took every pill I could possibly find in the house. And went out and mowed the grass when it was like 95 degrees out, thinking Damina would find me and still get the insurance because I passed away,
right
out there from heat exhaustion, whatever. She found me. I couldn't see very well, couldn't speak very well. Called the rehab. They said, take him to the emergency room, then bring him back here. We told him that would not work. I went back. There was a technician in there, really good friend of mine that's in a program. And she said, Neal, do me a favor. You talk a lot when you go to the meetings. Keep your mouth shut, open your ears, and get a sponsor and do what that sponsor says. And so that's exactly what I did that night. I went there. I found it was a small meeting. It had 3 guys in there, another girl. They had an automotive shirt on. And I thought, we got something in common. Wasn't thinking about the drug addiction or alcoholism. We got something in common. Still wasn't really grasping the whole picture of alcoholism. Wasn't grasping it. So I asked him to be my sponsor. And first thing he said, will you go to any lengths? Of course, I lied. I said, sure. Absolutely. I'll go to any lengths. He said, okay, I want you to pray. And I said, nope. Not going to happen.
Right.
And he says, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you to pray. And I said, I don't know how. And he says, you've already prayed every time you come to these meetings. He says, you say the serenity prayer before we start a meeting. You say the Lord's Prayer after the meeting. So you've already prayed. I was like, well, you got me on that one. But I still said I didn't know how. And he says, all you got to do, Neal, in the morning, say please. At night, say thank you. That's
good advice.
Wow. Keep it short and simple. Please, thank you. And that's what I did. But then I added the serenity prayer because I love the serenity prayer. Still to this day, I pray in the morning and I pray at night. And at the end of my prayer, I use the serenity prayer. And I just don't say it. I say each line and I think about what that line means and the questions that it asks, basically. And I still do that to this day for almost 14 years. But I worked the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous with that sponsor every single night.
And this was 14 years ago.
Yes. That's when I picked the white chip up. Okay. It was June 2nd, 2011. So we're getting close there.
Okay.
To 14 years. So I got that surrender chip. I picked that chip up and surrendered. And I surrendered to him. They said you have to have a higher power. Didn't want God, not going to happen. Not going to happen. They said you could pick your own concept of God, make your own higher power, which was him. My sponsor was my higher power. He told me to call him every day. I called him every day. I called him 3 or 4 times a day, because I'd drive by a liquor store. I'd call him. I just drove by a liquor store. It's driving me crazy. I want to go back. What do I do? He says, don't drive by the liquor store. Drive a different direction.
Yeah.
Walked in CVS, called him. Dude, there's pills in the background. I can hear them. I want them bad. Don't go to CVS by yourself. Send Damina. I'm like, it was just little things I didn't realize. Yeah. I never experienced that stuff. So I used him. And we'd work the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous every single day. I was his very first sponsee. So he was on fire to share.
Right. He was ready to roll.
He was ready to share what was shared with him. And so we worked them 12 steps. Step 1, minute I was powerless over alcohol and my life was unmanageable. Didn't understand that a whole lot. Knew I was powerless over alcohol. Unmanageable? My life's unmanageable. No, it wasn't at all.
Right.
Came to believe a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. There was that God, they wanted to throw God in there and then give everything over to that higher power, which they did that in Alcoholics Anonymous I'll say it because I'm pretty open to trick you. If you'd say you got to believe in God, I wouldn't be here right now. There's no way. I don't think I'd be here. Yeah. They said you have to believe in God. No, that's why they throw the higher power part in there.
But if they're giving you an out,
yeah, they're making it easy.
Yeah,
because if not, so many people would not work an AA program or an NA program if they'd say God. You got to believe in God.
Yeah.
You got
that ultimatum.
You got to believe this way or nothing.
Right. And so many people have that negative connotation. So like I said, they get in with the higher power and then they start seeing, God's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally it sounds like, it's kind of what happens. Now, I want you to go ahead. I know you said you started working the steps and
just because you're getting tired and you're ready to go home.
No, I'm not.
No.
Hey, we'll go for hours.
I told you I have till 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yeah, not at all. But I want you to know, I want to hear your, as you started progressing through those steps.
Progressing through that steps and about, I still obsessed about drugs and alcohol every single day. It was hard, very, very hard. That's why I use that sponsor every day, throughout the day. I go to meetings every single day. Rehabs always tell you to do 90 meetings in 90 days. For 2 years, I went to a meeting every single day.
Every day.
I was leaving work in Evansville, going to Newburgh for a meeting, going to Evansville for a meeting, meet my sponsor every single night. On weekends, on Friday night, I would drive to Princeton. And I left this part out. When I went into rehab the first time, not the very first time, years ago, but this time when I got sober, when I was checked into rehab, Demita walked into Al-Anon. They had an Al-Anon meeting that night, and she walked into there.
And she's been in that ever since, too.
So she brags that she has more time in a program than me. She says she has more, they call it serenity. We call it sober for us, but they call it serenity. And she'll say, I have more serenity than you.
And that was the same night you went together. She went in first.
I went into rehab.
You went into rehab.
She went into Al-Anon. So I was in rehab for a few weeks there
before he ever went to.
Before I ever went to AA. Yeah. Yeah.
So then, are there meetings around the clock, like in every area?
Not around the clock. Evansville and Newburgh is pretty wide open when it comes to meeting. We're blessed for that. That there's meetings at noon every day. Every night there's some kind of meeting. 5 o'clock meetings, 7 o'clock meetings, 7:30 meetings. West Side, East Side, Newburgh, Boonville.
So are they in like churches or
wherever we can find?
Yeah.
My home groups, I got 2 home groups that come to be accountable to and to be of service work. I got 2 of them. One's in McCutcheonville at the McCutcheonville Community Church at 6:30 on Thursday night. And then the Newburgh meeting, which is held at the Kiwanis building at 7:30 on Friday night.
Okay.
And I do that at 7:30, and in the same building, Demita has her Al-Anon meeting.
And so you still go to 2 meetings a week?
Oh, I can go more than that.
You to this day?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I go to 2 to 3 a week.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes even more if I'm asked to speak, or if one of my sponsees goes, dude, I want to go to a meeting tonight.
Yeah, and I want to get to that too, because now not only did you do that, but now you're a sponsor.
Yeah.
And you've got multiple sponsee. I don't know how many you've got now.
14, remember?
Oh, you did say that. That's right. That match.
14 right now.
So, and then I know we know a lot of them because you've brought them,
Yeah, a lot of them come here to church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not that I've ever forced them to.
No.
They just, they watch.
Funny how God works that way.
Yeah. They just watch and go, because I wanted what my sponsor had when I first met him, the happiness, laughing, cutting up. I wanted what he had.
Yeah.
And he was sober and having a good time. I wanted what he had. And that's what guys, I guess, see in me. I don't know why they do, because I'm not all that.
But they see.
I always joke that I got a huge ego that I'm very insecure with a huge ego, because I am very insecure.
Well, like you said,
this makes me nervous.
This makes you nervous?
This is fantastic.
It always does.
You're killing it, by the way.
It takes a lot. And that's what, like I said, is something to be so respected is, man, you got to really get raw and down with what's happened in your life, with what led you to, those issues. And then you got to be vulnerable enough to go and show that to other people, and not just us, but you're out showing it, like you said, a couple of days a week to other people who are going through it. And so you're letting them know, man, like I said earlier, it all comes back to, it makes such a big difference to be able to speak to somebody who's drawing wisdom from the same experiences that seem to be killing you right now.
Right.
Yeah. My favorite places to speak is recovery centers.
Yeah.
It is my favorite, because you can get, Alcoholics Anonymous is kind of, say they're not sticklers, but they have traditions. We have to have traditions or things would fall apart. It wouldn't work or stay alive for very long. And one of those traditions is if you speak in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, you shouldn't really talk about drugs because it's about alcohol. That's what we should speak about. When you're at the podium, you can share, during a meeting, an open meeting. We don't want to just go, a whole bunch of drugs. Because alcohol, that's Alcoholics Anonymous. There's others.
There's other groups.
There's Narcotics Anonymous and everything. I just happen to be a double dipper. Most of them are. Most guys are. And so when I speak at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'll say, outside issues. Those were the drugs. Outside issues.
And I would definitely say that, you're probably definitely in the majority. I think most people who have alcohol problem probably dabble. And not everybody. There are some that don't.
Yeah,
but most will like I said, we talked about earlier.
You get the alcohol in your system, you do about whatever.
Yeah, that's
a lot of things start becoming a good idea.
Yeah. So, I was working them steps with the sponsor and everything, but I was still obsessing about it really bad. I go into meetings every single night, going on Friday night, I leave work, pick up the meeting, go to back to Newburgh, Sunday morning, same thing, back and forth. And I was getting tired. About 2 months into it, if that, don't remember exactly dates. Demita had a surgery, and I believe it on her hand, the same hand that she broke because it's still messed up.
Yeah.
I wanted what she had. She wanted them pills really bad. I did everything that I was taught to do. I prayed, read the book, talked to my sponsor, go to meetings. I tried everything. Saturday night, that was on a Friday. Saturday night, I went to bed. Sunday morning, I got up. Didn't realize it for a few hours that the obsession was lifted. It was gone. We call that in the big book. Yeah, there's two different varieties. There's the burning bush variety of a spiritual awakening, or there's the educational variety that it takes a while to get there. But mine was the burning bush. Basically, I got up Sunday morning, up for a few hours, and was like,
wait a second,
what's going on here? And I called my sponsor, and he instantly referred me back to the big book, which that's what we do as sponsors. We don't sponsor off of our thoughts. We sponsor out of that book. My thoughts will kill you.
Right. Yeah.
My suggestions you will die off of my suggestions. So everything comes out of that book.
And it's Alcohol Anonymous.
Yeah.
It's their book. It's like their.
Yeah, we call it the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's the first 164 pages is what we study. The rest of them are stories.
Okay.
Personal stories. And so he referred me back to the back and Appendix 2, which is a spiritual awakening. He says, read that. That's what you had. I was on fire then. I wanted more. I wanted more of Alcoholics Anonymous. So bad that I walked in one night and said, Demita, I want to move. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, our house was still getting taken away. I was working, but we're in financial devastation. And I said, I want to move to Newburgh. And she says, I don't care where we go, just so you keep doing what you're doing and I can keep doing what I'm doing. I will follow you anywhere.
And you were in Princeton at the time?
We were in Princeton in that big dream home that we raised our kids up. For 17 years, we were in that house. We let it go back to the bank. For a long time, I heard a speaker one time, because for a long time I said, the bank took it away. They took my house. I gave it away. I didn't lose it, from drug addiction and alcoholism, because if you lose something, you don't know where it is. I know where it is. I can drive by it right now. So I didn't lose it at all. I gave it away.
Yeah. Right.
I gave it away.
You forfeited it.
Yeah. And so we moved it to Newburgh. My son was already out of the house. The other two daughters were gone as well. Not really talking to me at all. We moved to a 2-bedroom apartment in Newburgh, and we lived there for 5 years. And it was the happiest 5 years of my marriage. Not that it's still not happy, but it was
to that point.
To that point, because me and Demita started dating one another. I did not know her at all, because I didn't know myself.
Right.
I couldn't love another human being. And this is all from Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. I could not love another human being if I didn't love me. And I hated me. I hated me for everything I did, everything I was, everything I was still going through. I hated me. Everything, it was bad. And so, I said, I'm an open book. For 2 years, me and Demita didn't even have sexual relations for 2 years.
Was this after or?
That's when I got sober. When I got into Alcoholics Anonymous, it wasn't suggestion from my sponsor. It doesn't say that in the big book whatsoever. It was my decision. It wasn't Demita going, I don't want nothing to do with you. She tried.
Right.
And I was like, no, I can't, because I want to do this relationship the right way. I used and abused women when it came to sex. And even my wife, I'm an addict. I get addicted, been addicted to sex. That poor girl, that poor woman that I did. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I wanted to do it the right way.
Yeah, man.
So you started courting her.
We started dating. And to this day, every Thursday night, we still go on a date.
That's awesome.
Every night, or every Thursday night. And get this, it's to dinner and to an AA meeting.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's
cool. And it started out was a speaker meeting, which are open meetings, which is telling our story. That's what it's called, a speaker meeting. They get up there and they tell what it was like, what happened, and who they are now. And Demita loved it. Demita loves Alcoholics Anonymous. It saved her husband.
Right. Yeah.
It saved her marriage.
Yeah. There's definitely a personal attachment there, because it did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, because
for your family,
for like you guys, some of the stuff I might have said tonight, you're going, what? 30, Lord, what? But we can laugh about that stuff. When we hear speakers and stuff, we start laughing about the stupid stuff we did. Because I can tell all kinds of funny stories that I did, going to petting zoos, and I go, Demita, did I ride anything? Oh yeah, Neal, you're not allowed to go. You're not allowed to go back to that. Yeah, we got kicked out of there.
Neal still got pictures.
Oh yeah. It's like, wow. Because I had a good time.
Yeah.
Disney on Ice. I don't think I'm allowed back on Disney on Ice. That was one of my turning points when I thought I had a problem, because I took my granddaughter to Disney on Ice, and it was bad. That was a bad deal.
Yeah.
It was all because of me, my alcoholism. So I forget where I was at. It's first time tonight.
So you were dating, and
started dating,
going to the meetings every night because she loved the meetings, and she still does. We don't go to a speaker meeting now because COVID kind of destroyed that meeting, and so we go to that McCutcheonville meeting, which is an open meeting. That means anybody can go, but non-alcoholics, we prefer not speak because they don't know what they're talking about.
Right back to what I said earlier, right? Where I told you, like, in anything in life where you have people who've never, like I said, like pastors who have never left the phone, right? Pastors who have had no life experience.
Yeah.
And then they come every Sunday and tell you how to deal with stuff. And it's like, hold on a minute.
Right.
That was just what struggle I had. Nothing wrong with them. They're amazing. They've stayed with God all their life. That's a kudos. It's not like a negative thing. It was just always hard for me to listen to somebody who didn't have the experiences tell me how that I should handle them. Because believe me, dude, I'm with you. I was out having experiences. I wrote it hard and put it up wet too for a while. I don't have any kind of story like you are, but that's I see what you're saying. Like you say, non-alcoholics, you can come and listen, but
don't speak.
Just be
State
silent.
your name. Demita always says, I'm Demita, and I'm Al-Anon.
Yeah. But now I do see where I wasn't thinking about the family members, because they do have experiences that matter when it comes to that. But
they have their own meetings, though.
Yeah, they have their own meetings.
They have their own meetings for that.
But how much? I mean, does it help though for other alcoholics that are still going through it to hear how it affected like a family member like that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It could, because I always share that when I do my lead, is always share about the family thing and what they went through and what they're going, not going through now and everything. And they have the same, their meetings are the same 12 steps that we have. They're off of the big book.
Yeah.
Because what happened there was you got Bill W., which is a co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, and Dr. Bob, which is other co-founder. They would have meetings at a house, and their wives couldn't be there, so they would send their wife out to sit in the car. Well, all the wives are lined up in their cars.
We need our own meeting.
And so Lois Wilson, Bill's wife, said, let's go to the kitchen, have coffee or tea. And they started their own meeting.
Yeah.
And that's how that came about.
Wow.
Yeah. But we were dating, fell back in love, still date every Thursday night. Life is phenomenal. The kids, though, still didn't want anything to do with us. My son, okay, he was the youngest. He didn't take the blunt of it. He's still a mama boy, always will be. Not really a daddy's boy at all. He loves me. We do things together now and everything else, but they didn't want anything to do with me, especially my oldest daughter, which was the daughter that wasn't biologically mine. We didn't tell her about that for quite a few years, that I'm not her dad. But lo and behold, she found out, and that caused some issues.
Was that through another means? She didn't find out from you guys?
She didn't find out from us.
Okay.
I always wanted to tell her. Demita didn't want to. I think it was, I don't know what was in Demita's head. I can't tell you on that because it's Demita's feelings.
Right.
I don't know if maybe she was ashamed because.
Had you adopted her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have adopted her. Yeah. So she was mine. I treated her like mine. Didn't treat her any differently or anything else. But she found out about that. Well, before that, she just didn't want anything to do with me because everything I did.
She had witnessed the most, the longest.
She was there the most. Yeah. So she took the blunt or more of it. My middle daughter, she was the same way, kind of. She'd have a little bit to do with us, but not a whole lot. Back and forth and back and forth. I made amends to all three of my kids, which is in the process of the 12 steps.
Right.
Steps are in order for a reason. You just don't go all of a sudden, I'm sober. We think it's funny because we'll actually say it in the big book. It'll say, we're like a tornado and the family comes out of the bunker house and the alcoholics go, look, Ma, the wind stopped blowing and everything's disaster.
Right.
But the alcoholic's like, I'm sober. Look at me.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
I feel so much better.
They're not fine.
Right.
Yeah, they're not fine at all. Demita happened to have support through Al-Anon. So she learned that, about alcoholism and going to meetings with me on Thursday nights and other nights. She found out it was a disease and she worked through her problems and issues. The kids, not so much. They were by themselves. So it was off and on. After I made amends, they'd accept those amends and it would be good for a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year. And then the oldest, Trin, was her name. She would just drop off again. Don't want nothing to do with you. Brittany was the same way, back and forth. A little bit, not as bad. That's when about the time Trin found out that she wasn't my biological mine. And then it broke it. It broke the family. We came clean. She wanted to know all of it. And so we sat her down. We told her all of it. After that, a couple weeks later, she said, I don't ever want anything to do with you guys, ever. Don't talk to me. Don't call me and wish me a happy birthday. No Christmases. You're not allowed to see your granddaughters. I have 4 from her.
How far into sobriety was that?
About 8 years.
Okay.
8 years in sobriety.
Because he said she had kind of would come and go.
Come and go. But then this was.
But at this point,
I'm
done.
It's over. All the way down to Brittany, the middle child. She was kind of on board with Trin as well. Not as bad. Trin, I don't know. Brittany's a different animal. She's her dad. Brittany is her dad, and I'll explain that here in a minute. But yeah, Trin did not want anything. Don't contact me at all. I hate you guys. Even Demita, because Demita let
that happen.
What happened? There was nothing ever, as our kids, there was nothing ever sexual. There's a lot of people, I always make sure that's said that there was no sexual abuse there, people.
Yes, sure.
It was just physical. It was alcoholism.
Yeah.
Demita struggled with that really bad. Around this time is when my sobriety, there wasn't nothing threatening. I didn't want to drink or anything, but there was something missing. I was going to meetings. I was sponsoring guys, doing a lot of service work in AA, speaking a lot, going to conventions, everything. But there was just something missing, and I didn't know what it was. I got a different sponsor about 3 years or 4 years before this. He started going to church. One time he says, "Hey, you want to go to church sometime with me?" Nope.
Still nope.
Nope. Not at all. I got a higher power. That tree out there is my higher power. That leaf, that bird, that's my higher power right now. No, thank you. But something was missing, and I didn't know what. So one day I thought, Demita, what's it going to hurt? You want to go to church?
Let me. I don't mean to interrupt, but I remember.
Go ahead.
I remember seeing on Facebook like people inviting Neal to the refuge, and him saying, "Nope,
oh really?
Yep.
Not interested."
You remember that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Yep. Not going to happen. Well, I started going to church, and it wasn't the refuge.
Mm-hmm.
Demita knew about the refuge from your dad.
Yeah.
Because your dad was driving buses or something like that.
Yeah, they were working together.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and invited.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just put that
would invite
together.
Demita all the time to church, and she'd go, "Neal won't go. Neal won't go," because Demita was always a Christian. She was raised in a Baptist church, a very stern Baptist church that it made me farther away from God because the pastor would come and tell me that I was flat out going to hell.
Yeah,
you're going to hell. For what you're doing, you're going to hell. I don't care. You're going to hell. Yeah. And I was like, okay, dude, get out of my house.
Yeah.
So she had that fear of God.
Right.
That's what she had. So we started going to church, and it was big churches. And it was just, I had started to enjoy them because I would always, the message, I could relate it to the 12 steps. I'd go, oh, they're talking about step 5 today. Oh, they're talking about step 1. They're talking about step 8.
Mm-hmm.
I could always relate them to that. And I was like, okay, I get this. Then things started happening in these churches that I disagreed with, as in pastors having affairs.
Yeah, that's always bad.
And I was like, I was like, yeah, it was that. Or embezzlement. And I'm like, and then we went from one church that got dissolved, and some of the pastors opened another brand new fresh church, and it was held at the Gathering, and little bitty thing. We started going there, and then it went from the Gathering to another place, Old National Events Plaza, and I was like, it's getting bigger and bigger.
I didn't know you went there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it kept getting bigger, and each week we'd go, money.
Yeah.
And the money was, I could see, we need a church because we don't have a church. We're having to rent out Events Plaza. But then I'd walk in one day and they'd have big, huge light system, big, huge, sound system, video recorders. And you're like, you need a church.
Yeah.
And it started turning
the cart before the horse.
It started turning me off again to what I was seeking, because I was trying to find what was going on.
You felt that something missing still.
Still felt that something missing. And that was giving me a bad taste. Around this time, I was asked to do a weekend, a Christian weekend, a men's weekend called Tres Dias. And because they said these buddies of mine in AA have went through it, and they do a lot of Kairos weekends, which is prison ministry. Yeah. And they said that you have to go through Tres Dias before you can do the prison ministry.
Okay.
Yeah. And they said, you have an awesome story. I think you do great. You talk real good. Yeah. And so at first I said, no, I don't want to do that. Uncomfortable. But then I thought, what's it going to hurt? And so I did this Tres Dias thing. And Tres Dias means 3 nights, 3 days is what Tres Dias means in Spanish. And it was here in Evansville. And I went to it, and I was scared to death. Still didn't really know about God or Christ because I had questions. And so I took one of the pastors, because I always have pastors on the weekends, 2 or 3 pastors for different services and for questions.
Right.
And I took him in my room, because you have your own private room and everything. I took him in my room and I started asking questions. And he answered them questions. And one of the main ones is, why did God, take my grandfather? And he didn't really have an answer for that. But he says, I had a very strong resentment towards God for that.
And you held on to it for all those years. I held it
for all those years. I held on to that resentment.
But it wasn't even a secret to you. You knew you had that resentment, right?
Oh, yeah.
You were openly angry
in a way. Yeah. Yes. I didn't know that I was keeping him out.
Right.
For that. I didn't know I built them walls up with that resentment.
Right.
And there was a service part of the weekend that we call it, even AA has a book called Drop the Rock. And it's about, you jump out of a boat and you're getting ready to sink, but you're holding a rock.
You don't want to let that rock go.
You can't swim to the boat because, everybody's yelling at you. I'm trying to make it. I'm trying to make it. Drop the rock.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that, but it goes back to the Bible of how Jesus tells her how they're going to throw the rocks at the not the prostitute. Might have been I'm not a Bible.
He said, whoever
tosses
didn't sin, go ahead and pick up the rock and throw it.
Yeah. And it was kind of a service like that. And they said, either you can lay your rock down with your resentment, or whenever you're ready, you can put your rock in a basket. That was in the chapel. This beautiful chapel at this place. It's very old. And at 2:00 in the morning that night, I went down to that chapel by myself and I laid that rock down. And basically, I forgave God for taking my grandfather. And I never looked back after that. It's been on fire ever since then. That's when I said, hey, Demita, we need to find a different church. And she's like, I want to go check out the Refuge.
Right on.
And it was in that, back then it was in a little building. I was like, hey, no perfect people welcome.
Yeah.
Stephanie, you was my first guys, guy and girl. I was like, tattoos? Yes. I'm at home. Saw my pastor with a tattoo. Beard, this is it. Blue jeans.
Yeah.
A building that wasn't, all fancy and all that. I'm like, yes, wasn't begging for money. And I felt at home. Right when I walked in, I was like, I'm at home.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. I want to ask something though, because you said something a minute ago.
Uh-oh.
Well, no, and I want to know if you ever did realize this, or if this is maybe I'm wrong about it, but you were talking about the big book, and then you said that you would go to church and you'd be like, oh, they're talking about step 1.
Yeah.
Oh, they're talking about step 3. Was there ever a point when your mind flipped it and you said, hold on a minute, step 1 was actually talking about the Bible?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
It's rote. I mean, if I do anything, I do it alcoholically. Okay, so I study everything.
Yeah.
If I get involved in something, I'm going to go all the way, or I'm not going to do it at all. You kind of seen that when I first started going to the Refuge, I was asked to help with Vacation Bible School.
Oh, you did amazing.
And some of those sets were outrageous.
And I go, okay, we're going to do this. Yeah. So I do it all the way. And so I started researching with friends of other guy friends in AA. We do book studies and stuff like that to educate ourselves about history of AA and all that. And it was from the Oxford group is where kind of AA started, which was a Christian group of men called the Oxford group. And so these steps were all developed from them, but they had to figure out a way to not just go, God.
Yeah, because they didn't want to, as bad as it is, but it's just the truth, is like you said, exactly like you mentioning God and putting that particular constraint on it, just alienated you from it.
Right. And there's 12-step programs that are Christ related now, and that are derived from, Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I even sponsor a couple guys that what is it, Accent on Christ?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all, everything is not
Celebrate Recovery.
Celebrate Recovery. That's it. Not Accent on Christ. Celebrate Recovery. That just change higher power to God.
To God.
Yeah. To God. And so I can relate them to the back and forth now. Yeah, it switched on me.
Yeah.
Especially since I started doing more in Trace Diaz, because once you go through Trace Diaz, you can be on teams, and so many alcoholics are identical to me. They'll sit there and not want anything to do with God until that obsession lifts, and they're like, what happened?
Do you think it's that you realize at that point, everybody does, that that's the only answer?
Yeah, especially when you watch other people, in sobriety, in AA, and you go, we're all sober.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he stepping different?
Right.
Why does he have that little giddy up? And you go, what's going on with you? And one of my friends sits there, well, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
The joy of the Lord. That joy, right?
But yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It really is. And I would have never guessed that at all, because I didn't get me sober. God got me sober.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like everything. I say it, I feel like sometimes people get sick of hearing it, but every good gift, your sobriety, that's a gift to you.
Yeah.
Every good gift comes from God.
Yes.
Every good gift.
Every day comes from God.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So essentially what happened, even whether, and I'm assuming you probably didn't even realize it when it did. I know you probably know. I mean, I know you know now, is that when you entered into that Trace Diaz, you went from helping other recovering addicts through AA into helping other recovering people through ministry.
Yeah.
It's because, and that's kind of where I wanted to boil down, is that, I know, like, I think those programs are amazing, but I don't think that program brought you to God. I think God took you to that program.
We always say that God took me to AA and AA took me back to God.
That's right. Yeah, I would say that's a great way to put it.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Exactly what happened. Because if it wasn't for Alcoholics Anonymous and the way they wrote that book back in 1935, which they have never changed, the first 164 pages.
Yeah.
They have never changed the wording or anything else. That brought me to God. If they would, just the way they had it wrote opened up a door. It planted a seed, and then that seed grew.
It was the tool that God used.
Yeah.
To Bible says that He's the potter and we're the clay.
He used that with Bill W. and Dr. Bob that wrote it. I mean, he wrote that. God wrote that book.
And now
through them.
Yeah.
Through them.
And so now, man, so you've been through all this, these years have gone by. Tell us how it worked with your reconciliation with the kid
with the kids.
And where are you at? Where are you now?
7 years ago on a Sunday morning, I woke up. Another Sunday morning.
I wonder if
it was a 14th.
I wonder too.
I wonder.
We need to look it up.
But I saw I always keep my phone, in the kitchen. I don't take it to the bedroom because if I'm asleep, I don't want to deal with drunks. They know, even the guys I sponsor, you call me anytime after 9 o'clock, you need to call somebody else. Yeah. You have somebody else's number. All right. Because I'm in bed. But I saw my phone and had a bunch of missed calls from my middle daughter, Brittany. And it started at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was just back-to-back calls. So I instantly, I was up for church, instantly called her, and she was crying. And she said, "Daddy, I need your help." And for so many years, I knew she drank, just drank, normal. And I said, "What do you need help with, Brittany?" And she said, "I can't stop drinking." And I said, "I'm on my way." I hung the phone up, and I said, "Demita, we need to go to," she was living in Fort Branch. She was married, had two boys. And I said, "We need to go to Fort Branch. Brittany needs her help." And she said, "What?" And I said, "She can't stop drinking." She says, "I can't help her. You can. You go." So I went there with the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 9-step promises. And I read those 9-step promises. That promises say so many things that we're going to have through sobriety. Just one after another, after another, after another. And I read those promises to her as she was puking.
Yeah.
Not like the Exorcist with her head spinning. She tried to accidentally kill her husband that night. She ripped the door off of her car, and she just couldn't stop. For years, she couldn't stop drinking. She was like me. Matter of fact, she even went to one of my AA dinners and listened to one of the speakers a few weeks before that, drinking. I didn't know it. She was drunk.
Right.
I would have never guessed that she'd come to an AA meeting drunk, but she could not. That's how bad she was. She was already bad enough that she could not control her drinking enough for a dinner and listen to an hour-long
And you
speaker.
had no idea.
No idea. Demita didn't have any idea. For some reason during that meeting, because she was listening to a good friend of mine that's a female, she cried during the whole thing. Brittany did. So, and come to find out, she said she told my story. She told her story.
Wow.
And she was listening to another woman tell her story while she sat there drinking. But after I read their promises, she said, "Can you help me?" And I said, "No, I can't, but I know somebody that can." Women sponsor women, guys sponsor guys. We kind of know why.
Sure.
It can cause a big conflict of interest.
Right. Well, and not only that,
I don't know what a woman thinks.
They are different animals.
They are totally different animals.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I gave her to a friend of mine that has 1 month more sobriety than me. Hers is May 2nd, 2011, and I'm June 2nd, 2011. So we're brother and sisters in Alcoholics Anonymous.
You're born together.
She called that lady, and she's been sober ever since.
And that was 7 years ago? Yeah. Is that what you said?
No. A little over 5.
A little over 5.
Little over 5.
So through that, how did your relationship come back with your oldest daughter?
Slowly, it killed Demita with no, don't reach out to me, not allowed to see your grandkids, not putting Demita down at all, but I feel like I'm more spiritual. I don't know why, maybe because I research things more and I pray a lot more or whatever. I gave it to God. I just gave my relationship over with my daughter to God. Mm-hmm. Your will be done, not mine. I do that every morning. God, get me out of the way. Your will. Demita would cry about it. She wanted to, I want to call Trent. I'm like, just leave it alone. Leave it alone. But it killed her. I left it alone. Out of nowhere, she came back into our life after I just let it go. Yeah. And Demita finally listened to and just let it go. And we just kept doing what we're doing. Going to meetings, growing our relationship with Christ, praying together. We just kept doing what we were doing, and it slowly came back into our life that she actually, 3 years ago, I walked her down the aisle at her wedding. And before that, we were in the kitchen of this venue before I walked her down the aisle. It was just me and her. And I started crying, and I said, Trina, one more time, I want to say, and she just stopped me and she says, "Dad, this is over. We never want to have to mention this again. You're my father." And we hugged and cried, and me and Trent have a better relationship than Trent and Demita does. Yeah. Well, I hate that for Demita because I reach out to my kids a lot. Demita's not a reach out kind of person. I am. If I think about Jimmy tomorrow at work and I have Jimmy's number, I'm going to text out, "Hey, do you have a good day, brother?
Yeah.
Hope you have a good day."
That's awesome. I'm terrible. Yeah, I'm horrible.
I will concur. You are
horrible.
If I think of somebody, I text.
I will do that too.
Call.
I'm kind of like that kind of too. But it sounds, and it's like what so many people miss out on, is that when you let go and you just gave it to God. We talk all the time about when we get our own house clean, straight, right? We talk about it like in church, how that if we're doing the best that we can, to live for the Lord in a relationship with Him, then He everything else falls into place. He makes family better. He made you a better dad. He made her a better daughter. He made, even though, you're joking around, it made Demita a better mother. And
absolutely.
And whatever happened. And now you come back together. But it was because like you said, you gave it to God and God God's the only.
And I have to every single day and every
because
we all do.
Here's what I've learned, and I think I'm right about it, is there's a lot of things that'll change your mind. There's a lot of things that'll change situations and circumstances. There's only one thing that'll change your heart. And that's God.
Yeah.
God's the only thing that literally changes the viewpoint and the stance of our hearts. I know that, for me, there's been people in my life that for some reason they've done me wrong or whatever. I can tell you the hardest thing to do is to let that kind of stuff go. I'm not even talking based out of any kind of, I'm talking some of the things that would probably be considered so silly, right? But yet you get this grudge going. And from, like I said, I know that it's wrong. I don't want that in my heart. So I pray about that kind of stuff when I have like an issue or something with somebody. And, those feelings never go away until I finally say, okay, God, I'm giving that person to you. They might be a rotten, stinking stinker, but I'm giving them to you. And then I finally achieve peace through that. But it, no matter whether it's an enemy or a family member or even your child, I think when they see that and when they feel that, God works on two ends. I tell people that all the time. If somebody comes up and says, "Hey, God told me this," I always want confirmation. God works on two ends, right? He'll always confirm, things. And so you've got confirmation by like that right there. There's no bigger confirmation than that, than her saying, "Hey, Dad, hey, you're my dad. This is over."
Yeah.
And I think it probably was because of the change that she's seen in you. That took a while to process, but eventually
she did. I mean, my kids didn't believe that I was going to.
They were waiting for that.
They were waiting for it to drop.
The hammer to drop.
Yeah. But instead, and see what happened was you did what so many are unable to do. And I guess would be my final question or kind of what is, how do you get to that place? What strength did you find to have the kind of attrition that you do to where you made your mind up and you didn't monkey around? I hear so many people who fall off the wagon over and over and over and over again. And I know that's hard to do because I've done it myself. So I know that's hard, but what was it that enabled you to make not only a change, but you made a permanent change? And that's what changed the kids. It took them a while to realize, hey, what he did it stuck. It's permanent. And at that point they had faith in you because they had seen it so long. But what gave you that, how, I know you called and you followed the steps, but you still had to find some kind of inner strength because I know what addiction feels like. Yeah. I know what drug addiction feels like. And I know what kind of pain and people don't realize the anxiety and the stress and the physical, everything. It rocks your world. I mean, obviously I'm not telling you anything, but so how did you get to the point where you were like, okay, I'm done and I'm not turning back, right?
I think on that, it's my heart. We always say that alcoholics and drug addicts have a hole that we're trying to fill with outside stuff. A lot of people not a lot of people, but some will be cross addicts. We people call them, that they'll stop drinking and using drugs. Next thing you know, they're eating. They're eating all the time. They substitute, right? I was told early on that's called, not called, but what's happening there is they're not completely working step 3, which is give your will and life over to the care of God.
Yeah. Everything,
your will and life. And once I did that, the feeling of this hole is not empty anymore. It's a sense of peace and serenity that I have, that feeling that no matter what I'm going through, I'm okay. No matter what. And that's what keeps me going. Is that answering what you're asking, kind of?
More than kind of. Because, again, what you just did. So, I know what AA is, and I know there's steps, but I don't know specifics, right? Because I've never been through it. But I don't know if you even remember, a couple of weeks ago, I think I was talking about it, and that that step is literally what you just described. I would describe as every human being has this gap, right?
Yeah.
In our hearts. And I affectionately, and a lot of people affectionately call it the God gap. And what people will do is, in the absence of God, they will try to fill that gap with everything they can.
Yeah.
Some people it's relationships. Some people it's money, career, job, their spouse, their, whatever. They try to fill it, alcohol, drugs, anything that they can get that makes them forget that for some reason there's this emptiness there. But it's like anything you put in there is like trying to put a square in a round hole.
Yeah.
Right.
Only one thing will fit, right?
Only one
thing will fit. And so when you finally fill that God gap with God, right? So in other words, if you're a Christian, I know this is, our podcast isn't always completely faith. It is, but it's also comedy and everything else. I love this episode. It's different than what we've done. And it gives us an opportunity to talk more about the difference that God can make in someone's life. And I just want to say to everybody, maybe you're out there, watching this and maybe you've struggled with this same kind of thing, that regardless of what the world tells you and regardless of what your friends tell you and regardless of what the TV and the news and everything tells you, that, man, there's only one thing that can really complete us as human beings, and that's being in a relationship with God. And you're living proof of it. I know you work that program, but I see so much God, which you openly say too. Yep. There's so much. I mean, it's all God. Everything that happened, everything that you described to me tonight, I can see literally as you explain it, how God just worked it out. He just put the pieces
all for a reason.
Once you finally
every bit
surrendered,
of it, from being abusive to the kids to me, to all of that was it was God.
Yeah.
I mean, not saying the beatings and stuff like that. But
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, but okay, here we go. I know that kind of stuff wasn't, God wouldn't put that in the plan for you.
No.
But all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord.
Yeah.
So He takes everything that we do, even our mistakes, and He turns them around and He uses them for our good.
Yeah. And now I have what really keeps me going is a peace. And like Demita says, her serenity, that mine's bigger than hers. Because I heard one time on a speaker, you judge your sobriety by how fast you fall asleep at night.
Ooh, that's good.
And how much at peace you
really
are
good.
in life is how fast. And I fall asleep instantly. Instantly, I fall asleep. I can go home after church. I go home. We eat lunch. Out.
That's the best. That's the best time to.
That
take a
is the
nap,
best kind.
Demita has a TV full blast with horror films going on, and I'm already just out. Yeah, and she even says, "How do you do it, Neal? You close your eyes no matter what's going on, and you can instantly fall asleep." And I'm like, I'm at peace.
Peace.
Yeah.
And God gives me that. God gives me every bit of that peace.
The Prince of Peace.
I have nothing to do with it except the actions.
Yep.
I just take the actions that He guides me.
Yeah.
You accepted that free gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I let them walls down and accepted it.
Yep.
Well, man.
And I do every morning.
That's just, dude, your story is amazing. I'm so happy you're here and that you, and that your story worked out the way that it did. Man, we love you. We thank you, man, for coming and sharing with us, for kind of getting raw. And listen, everybody, I'm going to ask you, if you would, don't forget, like, share, subscribe. That's the best way to help us out on this channel. And we want you to do that. We want more people to see this, and we want to bring more content like this that will allow us to put some things out there that's going to help people. So also in the description, I'm going to put the information for Alcoholics Anonymous in there, so that if you have questions or if you have somebody that's struggling, all that information will be in the description of this video.
Or you can put my phone number on there.
Yeah.
I just want to answer it after 9.
We're going to put Neal Combs' phone number on there, and don't call him after 9. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I'm going to give you one last close up, and Jimmy, what you got to say?
Well, bye.